What is going on, everybody? Good evening, bird brothers and sisters. Well, actually, just completely botched that for a quick minute. There we go. Gotta let everyone know who the hell is on the screen. Didn't have the display names, but what's up, bird brothers and sisters? Lindy Endzone in the building for the touchdown, taking the lead for the Philadelphia Eagles. One video at a time. And as y'all can see, I'm dropping buckets for the Dallas Mavericks. Let's go. World Series champs Atlanta Braves as well. Keep the Freeman hat. Had to throw it in there. But for this episode of Touchdown Talk, this one's a little bit special here. A first time for the series in which this is a touchdown takeover. And who better to be added to the spotlight here other than the East Meets West podcast, formerly consisting of Eagles Uncensored, Vic 3, and Philly Foothills themselves. Two of you I have already done collaborations with, but Vic 3, this is your first time over on my channel, but between AK and Foothills, you already know how the two of us get down anything and talks to the Eagles. But gentlemen, I welcome you to the channel, and I have been excited for this one for about the whole week leading up to this point. I know you guys have as well. So I'll let y'all kick off the evening by saying what is up to the rest of the Eagles community. Whoever, I'll tell you first. I don't care.
Hey, Ken, we'll kick it off with you.
Yep.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? I'm AK Eagles from the Eagles Uncensored podcast. I may fuss and cuss, but you can count on me and my content like the fucking city bus. And if you like the Wagyu, subscribe too. How's it going, Lindy? Appreciate you having me on and the crew on here. It's going to be a great night. Going to talk some Eagles talk. And you know what? I got a special surprise for everybody. For the first time and only one at the moment, I have it on. We have our first T-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all are official now.
Go.
I tell you what, that's got to be a good feeling for y'all.
Straight fuego right there. That is straight
sir.
fuego. What is good? What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Philly Foothills out here in the nest out west, chilling out, hanging out here in the sunny California state, enjoying the camaraderie with my buddies here. We got the East Meets West, joining Lindy Endzone. I mean, it can't get much better than that. So glad to be here. Good to be with my guys, and let's get this thing going.
Hey, what's good, everybody? You know who it is. It's Vic 3, man. Y'all see me in the chats. You always see me with my guys supporting great content. I'm just happy to be here for the first time with my guy, Lindy Endzone. He's been, gracious enough to be on my show multiple times. It's an honor for me to be here, so I'm excited. Let's get it going, guys.
Yeah, you already know the deal. I mean, yeah, that's true, Vic. I've been I've been through for a couple of your post game shows, and whether it was through convincing wins or frustrating losses with the 2021 season that was for the Eagles that have seemed bipolar or having two different personalities to how they play on the football field. But it was good towards the end of the year that they finally established something. Take of it what you will. The competition, the lack of competition that they have played at the end of the year. Those bad teams. Well, guess what? We can't help that. We can only play who's in front of us, and it's still. It's still up to us to actually win those football games because bad teams don't beat bad teams. You got to have some level of talent, some level of confidence to carry that out. And while we have witnessed the end of the year and that beat down again to Tampa Bay in the playoffs, as we know by now, it left much to be desired. But at the same time, it's not outrageous to it's not outrageous to point out that there was growth in this football team, especially when you consider the coaching staff for one. As a whole, I guess you can collectively, bring them together and say that there was growth there, outside of maybe Jonathan Gannon, the biggest punching bag right now in that coaching staff. That a lot of us were a little irritated that the Houston Texans did not pick him up, for that head coaching position. But um, you
I
know,
would say there wasn't. I would also say there wasn't much growth with Aaron Moorhead, our wide receivers coach. I'm a little.
okay.
I'm at that
Mhm.
point where I think I'm ready to get a new guy in house. I don't think he's getting the max potential out of this young wide receiver core.
So I guess being that we're starting the show here in terms of trying to dissect the growth of this football team after the end of the year and the loss in that wild card game. We're talking about the coaching staff here, and I guess we can go. I guess we can go one by one in means of an assessment on how we feel that how these guys have done respectively to their position groups. I guess starting at the head coaching position with Nick Sirianni. Didn't have a very high expectation going into the season, and we were in a position talking about it to where, well, we were trying to make Carson happy at one point while he was still in Philly, and even though a lot of us, or some of us, I won't say a lot, but some of us didn't necessarily see it right away. But the writing was on the wall for him to get out of there. He did not want to be an Eagle anymore. I'm thinking that in a last ditch effort, they tried to make him happy once more, one final time, and being that they could not bring back Frank Reich, they felt that the next best thing was one of his right hand men in Nick Sirianni, and well, it wasn't enough. He was gone, and well, that introductory press conference that Sirianni had, and he got completely bashed for. With all of that stuttering and everything, and I remember AK, us two. I think we were in a couple of live streams or call-ins, if you will, and we were defending the man pretty strongly in that regard. Just like, why are people blowing this completely out of proportion? And it's not in the means of how he's talking. It's more of what he's going to do in setting like his brand, setting his example on the football field, and how he is going to lead that team in his own right. And, between that and all the gardening cliches, and trying trying to bloom those flowers, but well, it ended up getting us above a 500 record. A lot of us did not have us making the playoffs, even under 5 wins for that matter. But when you take the season as a whole, and I guess we'll go around the carousel here. But I think I already have an idea on what AK is going to say to this. But when you take the season collectively as a whole, what what kind of assessment did you get out of how well or not Sirianni did in his first year head coaching the Eagles, and what is your expectation going forward from here?
Well, listen, to be honest, man, I never really truly doubted Nick Sirianni. I've always had faith in whoever we chose as a head coach, and I know a lot of people can be like, oh, bullshit. No, listen, history shows that we actually have a pretty good track record of hiring head coaches, all the way back from Andy Reid. You know what I mean? And Andy Reid was just as unproven as Nick Sirianni was when we hired him. You know, so I really can't say anything about that. Hey, he's the only rookie head coach to make the playoffs this year. And he was actually ranked like the second worst hire, I believe. if not the worst.
Mhm.
So they proved a lot of doubters wrong. It's like I told you, man. Like this team, whether they won or lost that playoff game, they already won to me because everyone doubted them all year long. They had us having the second, third overall pick in this draft. Being last in the division, only having 3 or 4 wins, and they completely proved everyone wrong. So, man, listen, I know his philosophies were weird. I know people made fun of him for it, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to be addicted to the guy just because he cares. And that's what Nick shows me is that he truly cares about what he preaches. I saw that one video at the beginning of the year when he first started. He went out and threw that football with the fans there.
Mhm.
How many coaches are doing that? He's wearing merchandise that just fans send in, random shit that they made, and he's advertising it during his pressers. That's really cool. That is really cool. And I'm sorry that it's a weird kind of cool, but I kind of dig it. So I have very high expectations for him. If we're just talking head coach alone, I think Nick has a very good chance of being a very good coach in this league.
Yeah, I mean it's held true. I mean up until up to the end of the season, especially. And I know between Foothills and Vic, the two of you have had, you guys have had your, and I had the word off the top of my head, and now I can't remember it. Not nitpicking, or I guess like I guess some minor concerns in some of
Qualms,
Sirianni's.
small qualms.
That works too. But I mean, you guys did have some minor reservations. That's what it was. But you guys did have some minor reservations at some points, and in really questioning what was going on with Sirianni, especially in terms of the offense. But where has he? What level has he gotten to up to this point on whether he has elevated or decreased your confidence in him as a head coach going forward for the football team?
Oh, he definitely increased it going forward. Listen, I mean, this is something else I left out when I was just mentioning him a second ago. To have the balls to go from the offense that he started with the first 6 weeks and completely 180 in offense in the middle of the year, like, dude, that's ballsy. That you know how hard that is. You're taking an all pass offense and making it an all run. Not very many people do that, and that's hard to make your players change the mentality of the way they play. But dude, he pulled it off amazingly, and we were number one in rushing in the NFL. I mean, I give him all the credit for that because not many coaches would have done that, flipped their entire playbook in the middle of the season.
No, no. Foothills big between whichever one of you two.
Go ahead, Vic.
Um,
Well, in reference to Sirianni, it definitely was a tale of, 2 seasons, a tale of two coaches. Like AK mentioned, he was the only rookie coach to make the playoffs. And one of the rookie coaches, a lot of people base Sirianni or compared him to was Brandon Staley, head coach of the San Diego Chargers. We saw early on he had a lot of success. He was even out there talking about the importance of friendship. And that's kind of like I think where you were leading to earlier at the beginning of the season, where we had our reservations about Sirianni. And it was just that. Sirianni didn't care to run the ball. Miles Sanders would have maybe 5 to 6 carries a game. The offense, it looked offside penalties, and the defense wasn't playing up to par as well. But then as the season progressed, Sirianni changed things due to circumstance, whether it be because Miles Sanders being out, whether it be that Jalen Hurts wasn't grasping the offense at the time. But he made the right correction. Those are a lot of things that, a lot of those first year coaches didn't do. Daly specifically, when you look at that Chargers team, they stuck with the running game, but they didn't develop that passing game. They had some success with Mike Williams, but they got away from him. He stuck in the same mold, whereas Sirianni, you saw as the year transpired, He was developing. He was changing. He was progressing. You saw the maturation process. The same cannot be said for Coach Gannon. But as for Sirianni, we saw him like how you saw him blossom in front of your eyes for all intents and purposes. And going forward into this season, I have a lot of expectations because I saw what he came from nothing and what he came to. So now I see that, he has it in him to make the changes, to take himself out of it and see what needs to work. Like he said at the beginning, put your team and your players in the right position. And that's what he started to do at the end of the season. Hopefully he can progress on that and, we can go forward from there. But yeah, I have high expectations for Sirianni going forward.
Yeah, I think I do too, to a certain extent. There's going to be more growing pains along the way. There really is. I think he's a smart guy though. He comes from a coaching family. He's been doing it for quite a long time now, and to me, he's shown some very, very important characteristics this past season in regards to being a successful head coach in the National Football League. I think he showed that he can be a leader of men, and that like AK and Vic said, he's not stuck in one way, unlike some other coaches are. Some other coaches are very stubborn and they don't really like to adjust their scheme very much. But Sirianni did, and whether or not the front office and I'm talking Lurie and Roseman had influence on the style of the way our offense was ran at the beginning of the year, that's definitely another topic that we could dive into in itself, because that's definitely something that needs to be addressed a little bit, I think. But whether or not it was Sirianni just making the adjustment himself, or whether he was like, look, if you want us to start winning games, you got to let me run my offense the way I truly want to run my offense. And either way, he's shown that he's got the testicular fortitude to last in Philadelphia. I think he did. He took some criticism. The fans were hard on him at the beginning because of the Rochambeau stuff and all that. But you know what? Our country the whole world was going through an epidemic. He had to find ways to see how guys, to try to draw that camaraderie out of guys, to try to draw that competitiveness, to see where they're at, to try to see what kind of response that they would get, things like that. So, I'm happy with our coach right now. I really am, and I really do think that in about 4 or 5 years from now, that we could be talking about him as one of the the upper echelon coaches in the National Football League.
Yeah, it seems to this point so far, we don't want to get a step ahead of ourselves here, because it has only been 1 year, and usually I guess there's a little bit of leeway there, and the result of how some things happen. But as we have seen from the beginning through the mix of scrutiny that Sirianni has received, he never backed down from the challenge, and he's as it's been discussed, he's stayed true to form. There's a certain way that he wants to run things, but he's not afraid of adaptations, especially with the skill positions that he's working with, and for how many weeks we have asked for, the high scale skill set of the offensive line, and we've been asking for them for weeks on end to run the football, and that's what this offensive line is built to do, no matter who is almost to the level of, it doesn't matter who's in the backfield, because you still need talent back there. And whether it was Miles Scott or rookie Kenny Gainwell, did I say Miles Scott? What the hell? And I thought I said Miles. I had a back. I had a
Boston Scott.
five for a second. I mixed up two guys, but whether it was Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, or Kenny Gainwell, it almost didn't matter because we adapted to them, and it just made for a smooth transition because of how darn good the offensive line has been on a consistent basis when they are healthy. But that is just a testament to the depth of that position. It's a testament to I think the most valuable coach on our football team, at Jeff Stoutland, and it's a testament to not being stubborn to change. So there was a very good collaborative effort there, and we'll see going forward what the result of it ends up being, because I know one of Sirianni's guys in the offensive coaching tree for the Eagles here. One of them was poached from Doug Peterson, who was I think was one of the pass game consultants in I think Jim Bob Cooter, who Doug eventually took to Jacksonville. So we'll see who ends up taking his place. And while he was a great asset, I don't know how much of a loss he's going to be moving forward, because we still have Kevin Petula, we still have Shane Steichen, who seemed to be very essential in the success in terms of the turnaround of the offense under Sirianni, who was the play caller. And Jason Michael did a good job for the tight end position as well, and Jamal Singleton, I think, did pretty good for the running backs, especially replacing Deuce Staley, which we knew at that point in time was going to be a tall task depending on who was going to come in. But I still think Jamal did a good enough job there. And then when you consider the rest of the group on defense, they did, I guess, okay to a level of they knew what they were working with, and it wasn't to a level that they were hoping to at some point in time. So I guess with that said, we can now transition to the defense. And while we already brought up the fact that some of us were hoping Jonathan Gannon was not going to be the defensive coordinator, and well, now that he has been retained, and a lot of us are left with a sour taste in our mouth right now as at the result of what the defense looked like. And yeah, we were, I guess, middle of the pack. Like the Eagles were pretty good for the most part in points allowed, but it didn't translate to a consistency of creating turnovers. The defensive line was underwhelming in terms of sacks. The linebackers, for the most part, were a disaster outside of injury. So needless to say here, there's a lot left to be desired, not only from the position groups, but the leader of those position groups in Jonathan Gannon. So I guess we'll go around the carousel here once again and, analyze our defensive coordinator the same way as the head coach. So, AK, I know the two of us have discussed this on a previous episode of Touchdown Talk. We were kind of in a middle ground on this, to where we understood that there was limitations that Gannon was working with, but sometimes for certain individuals it almost doesn't matter, because they're good enough to get the best out of their players. But being that Gannon was in the same situation as Sirianni as their first time individuals in their respective positions, where does this leave us going forward with Gannon, and what ultimately needs to happen to see a respectable amount of improvement?
Yeah, shout out to Joey Shakes, by the way, for stopping in. He was on with us last night, and I'm going to bring it up how we brought it up last night. When was the last time that we saw Fletcher Cox say anything, be vocal like he was this year? hardly ever. So he was very frustrated, enough to say something. I don't believe Jonathan Gannon comes back in with the same scheme he had last year. I believe it will be altered in certain ways to benefit these guys more. You know, it seems like that they're all about communication, and they tell the guys, "Hey, if you don't like something, speak up. Let us know." You know, it's a learning process for everyone. So, you know, that's what they're doing. So I don't assume anything at this point, but I I don't think he comes back playing the same defense he played last year. Hello.
All right, people. Like we always say, it's live.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, what I'll say for Coach Gannon, like I mentioned before, from beginning to end, I didn't see a progression. But aside from Coach Gannon, I want to take a look at the defensive coordinators also. You have the linebackers coach named Route. I didn't see any progression for the linebackers. Now you can say that we had bad talent. Yeah, I could throw that in there, but we have some decent talent. It's not the worst in the world. We said we saw progression with Davion Taylor, but I don't think that had anything to do with Rouse, more to the fact that he had finally gotten healthy. He's finally around this defense. For everyone else to get Alex Singleton, he had a lot of tackles, but again, when you look at the reason why he had those tackles, it's more of he was used as a barrier for him. He was getting knocked. He stumbled on to tackle. Wasn't anything great out of any of the linebackers. You could say Taylor, but was it really that great? Also, you look at the defensive line coach, Tracy Rock. We expect a lot of him. He commands a lot of respect in this league. But again, early on in the season when we were playing against good teams, we saw some things, but throughout the whole season, the defensive line didn't show any real progression. If anything, it showed a regression. We saw Hargraves at the beginning of the season playing well. Then by the end, he was non-existent. Same thing for Cox, non-existent pretty much the whole season, the past 2, 3 seasons. So I think Tracy Rocker, there got to be a change there also. The only person on this defense, and you're counting defensive coordinator that had a decent season or showed any kind of progression was Denard Wilson, defensive backs coach. Week in and week out, he had that defensive line, excuse me, the defensive backs ready. We had an issue at safety. For the most part, we plugged and played, and we stayed secure. We didn't go down to shit that much. It wasn't like we were giving up a lot on the safety position. If anything, they played admirably. It wasn't the greatest, but it wasn't the worst either. So when you look at this defense as a whole, we have a lot of issues. Hopefully, this coaching staff can step it up. I don't know what Gann is going to do. Like AK said, it could be that he tries to revitalize this defense. He tries something different. I hope so, because that shows at least he's willing to change things up, because we haven't seen anything change. He talking to the players saying, come to me if you see anything. But I'm pretty sure all year the players have been coming up to him and saying things. It's only at the latter part of the season when it was almost over, frustrations boiled over, and you saw Cox on the sideline not happy. Then they finally got, all right, let's do something. Again, when we look at the last 2 games of the season, we reverted back to what we were doing at the beginning. So yeah, there's a lot to be worried about the defensive coordinator and the coaching staff too.
Okay, I will give you the defensive line coach. All right, but I'm sorry, dog. I can't give you the Rallis. Listen, our linebacking core is straight fucking dog poop.
What did he
Like,
do?
we're not gonna lie about it. The lack
What
of
linebacker
talent that
stood
we
out?
TJ Edwards definitely stood out. I mean, he sure
Nah,
Taylor a little bit, but what I'm saying though is you hit it right on the head. The reason why Rallis didn't do as good in your eyes is because of the lack of talent he had to work with at that position. Like if you sat here and he had
that's why I wasn't that hard on him.
like a Fred Warner or some shit like that, then okay, like we'd be talking an argument here, because it'd be like, well, if you got one of the top premier middle linebackers and he's playing like shit, well then it's the coaching at that point, because we've seen him play really good. You know what I mean?
Well,
But no, we have nothing, to be
Well, I'll
honest.
say this: we had a free agent in Wilson who we thought would be, a pretty good middle linebacker, and there was regression out of him. Again, he didn't
I know,
play,
but that's one year.
spectacular with Minnesota.
But
I
Yeah,
get it, but
he
he
had
didn't play
one flash
spectacular with
year,
Minnesota. But
dude.
again,
That was
there was
one.
regression, but it was regression under him. Regression was
we
under
have
him.
we have to remember that no matter how good of a position coach you are, if you're in a shitty system, you can only do so much. You know,
Yeah.
you can only do so much. You're only going to get so much blood out of the turnip, so to speak. You know what I mean? So we have to take it. We have to kind of really step back and look at it. Okay, was it individual coaches? Was it them not getting the maximum out of their out of the positions that they're coaching, or was it just the fact that Jonathan Gannon just maybe he's not cut out to be a defensive coordinator?
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I want to mention that Lindy mentioned also, it's about Coach Sirianni and his willing to adapt. Coming into this season, if Coach Gannon doesn't progress, I understand that's his best friend, but that's the time where now you have to adapt. You're going to have to
Right.
make a change. Will he be able to do it? We had the same issue with Doug Peterson, where he stuck with his guys. Is Coach Sirianni that same kind of coach where he stick with his guys before he puts the team first?
I think he probably, I think he gives JG. Well, I mean, they're going to give him another year, and I think if the defense struggles, there's a possibility. I think Gannon could be fired during this next season. I really do. I think he's skating on thin ice.
Relationship, though, it scares me. I think that's one of the reasons why I don't like coaches hiring best friends. Or if the work is there and it grants it, then yeah, by all means, bring that guy along. But if you're just bringing him along because you came up with him and you're good friends, that's not a reason to bring a coach along with you. Like I said, if they're doing the same work you are, you're progressing the same way,
right?
Then yeah, I would say bring him along. But again, we see Coach Gannon, he hasn't been able to step it up.
If the front office gave Doug Peterson an ultimatum, basically, damn sure they're going to give Sirianni one. If they get tired of Gannon
Hopefully.
and he doesn't want Gannon gone, they're going to be like, well, you better rethink that, or you're going to be right next to him on the unemployment line.
Yeah. I wanna apologize there, fellas. I turned the camera off, but I forgot about the mute, so I'm assuming that I was heard in the background, and I was caught completely off guard to the fact that I was hearing water somewhere, and there ends up being a leak in my basement in the back corner by the door that leads to the garage. I wasn't expecting whatsoever because we got some heavy rain or some moderate rainfall here right now, and so that's news to me. So there's some sort of leak somewhere that I gotta find in the home now. So great, yeah, first time home buying, right? Fixing, trying to find everything you possibly can, but yeah, no, I mean. AK and I talked about it in the
Sounds like Coach Gannon's career.
Well, AK and I talked about it in a way in our episode of Touchdown Talk to where, yeah, Gannon has his issues right now, of course. I guess that's a part of the learning curve when you're in the humble beginnings, per se, in terms of coordinating a defense. And he did have a minor bit of clout, whether it was through Minnesota or Indianapolis, in doing a good job with coaching the cornerbacks, throughout the secondary. But in another sense, we realized that between Gannon and Schwartz, they have dealt with similar issues, and it's not to excuse anybody, but we gotta be frank about the situation here. And Gannon came in inheriting a defensive mess, for one. Two, Schwartz and Gannon have dealt with similar issues in terms of how the defensive roster was built. Lack of linebackers. The secondary was underwhelming at times. There was a big, predicate on the defensive line applying most of the pressures, and the result was pretty similar this year. And in a sense, you necessarily can't fault Gannon for working with, I guess, a half full to almost an empty cupboard. And yeah, that's not to say that he didn't have talent on that side of the ball, because you had Fletcher Cox, you had Brandon Graham up until he tore his Achilles, you had Rodney McLeod, who was commanding the safeties. You had your number one corner in Darius Slay. And then, outside of that, you had your serviceable players, whether it was Avante Maddox, Steven Nelson, Alex Singleton, for a couple of points in time. TJ Edwards was coming up late. So, you have to give a little bit of credit to Nick Rallis for doing a decent job with the guys that he has had at the linebacker position. Yeah, there's a mix of experiences there, and there's a mix of experience for Nick in his own right. So I think collectively he did a good job at that position as well. But I look at this defense, and again, you're in a situation where it looks like Swiss cheese, and it's not getting any better unless
let me put it this way, Lindy, real fast. The ones who are talented, you saw, Slay, Maddox, Hargrave, and even Sweat at times. The ones who truly are talented all had their best seasons under JG this past year. Even Slay, out of his 9 years, this past year was his best season under JG. So did the other guys just do that terrible because JG's a bad coach, or did they do that terrible because they're just that less talented? Because it seems that everybody who has talent that was on the defense, one, made it to the Pro Bowl, and two, had their best seasons. But the ones who didn't, well, what's the excuse? Is it because he's a bad coach, or is it just because they're not talented enough to do what he wants them to do? That's what you got to ask yourself. Because obviously he can coach, or Slay would have had a bad year, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. But still,
it's kind of like when you're the best player on a bad defense, you're gonna shine.
Yeah, but how bad was Maddox the year prior to this one? And now look at him this year. He was the best slot in all of the NFL with like a 71.6 coverage grade. He was the best. And the year prior to that, we were all sitting here wondering, is he the guy? I mean, he made that big of a
deal. Out of position. He got moved into the spot. That's what he should have been last year.
But that matters, though, right? But look at JG put him in the position to win.
But look at Steven Nelson. He was touted as a decent player, free agent, 1-year contract, but he didn't do that. He didn't do that great. He played decently at times, but wasn't anything great. Why didn't he have a better season?
Well, I mean, you can afford to put Avante back to his natural position because you have guys you can trust on the outside. Yeah, Steven Nelson's not a world beater, but when you got your number one in Slay, and you got somebody serviceable on the other side who between the two of them, they can take care of business and do what they need to do, then that only puts you in a better position, to which your players can play where they're supposed to. And we have known Avante to be best in the slot, and he was so good to the point that he ended up getting an extension along with Dallas Goedert, roommates there. But yeah, I mean that's how it goes sometimes. But in regards to Slay, if you're the only good player in a certain position group, there's also it doesn't completely reflect on the defensive coordinator in that respect, because you're being brought in to do a specific job, and you may end up having to be not only carrying out what you have to do, but Slay ended up being a leader of that cornerback group, and a lot of guys, even some of the receivers went to Slay for for advice on facing the opposite guy on defense, or knowing the receivers, knowing how to beat certain corners, what their tendencies are. So
As they should.
Slay's
do that.
value was
Slays that
a
vet,
lot
yeah.
more than just playing.
I mean, you think
Yeah, same
that
thing
was
like
a
with
smart
Rodney
move.
McLeod. He was that guy that they went to also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Slay is going to have the knowledge of he's going to have more knowledge of most of the cornerbacks out there. You know what I mean? He's been through the trenches. He's seen pretty much every receiver out there. So he's got a lot. He'd be a great person to lean on, and I'm glad that he did that. It's a smart move.
Well, and not just that, but with Rodney McLeod probably exiting this year, I assume he is going to. That automatically makes Darius Slay the leader of the secondary. That he is that voice now.
Oh yeah,
and that's a very strong voice to have. So that means a lot.
Yeah.
And
he's going to be a great mentor for guys like Tay Gowan. Tay's going to be able to learn from Slay. He's going to be able to absorb it and grow as a young corner. So I'm excited to see what we can get out of some of these guys that we have in house.
Not just that, dude, but he's also going to help out tremendously on the other side of the ball, our wide receivers. You know how much he's going to make Devontae Smith grow as a wide receiver? How much he can help this kid be dominant? Like, he's a very big asset to this team moving forward, for sure.
Yeah, and if we get another, if
seen him earlier in the season during training camp going one-on-ones.
Yeah, and if we get a veteran presence like a Mike Williams on the other side, oh, look out, because that's just going to open up so much more things for not only Smith but for Goddard and for the whole offense itself. It's just going to open up when you have another legitimate receiver on the other side. Man, I'm not too thrilled about Juju, but if we get Williams, I'm all in for that. I would love Mike Williams.
I'm hoping I'm getting a savvy receiver like Allen Robinson would make sense. Again, with this young receiving staff, that's another guy who can spread a lot of knowledge to the receiving corps. Mike Williams is great and all, but again, best ability is availability. He's been short on that.
Yeah, and I mean, you're looking at two guys there that are pushing 30 years old. So I mean, they're both coming off of pretty good seasons. So in terms of free agency, obviously the price has to be right for one, and I don't think the Eagles are in a position right now again to really use free agency as a security blanket to like temporarily patch holes instead of like sealing it up with concrete. It's not going anywhere, and that's where a lot of these draft picks are going to come in. So long as we use all three, but something tells me in the back of my mind that we're probably only going to use two of them. I can see us using back-to-back 15 and 16, but I think if Howie wants some flexibility going into the following year, he may end up wanting a future first and swapping that 19, as we have known for him to do those kinds of deals in the past, especially all depending on how their draft board is going to go when draft day comes. If those guys that aren't there, that aren't BPA, as in best player available, he's not going to necessarily waste the pick. And wasting a pick in the first round, it doesn't sound like it makes sense, but BPA is important, and that definition does not equate to the rest of the National Football League. Multiple franchises are going to have different definitions of BPA, and it's based on the construction of the roster. For the head coach, for the organization, there's a lot of factors that go into it. So, with that said, I guess we can use this time to dive into the depth chart a little bit, as I have started a quick video series. I started it yesterday. I called it the position decision. and I started with the quarterback position being being the being the publicity that it's driving, in the Eagles fan base right now and throughout the NFL, and a lot of people not believing Jalen Hurts is going to be the answer for the Eagles in 2022, and for whatever reason, that's worst case scenario, and we should use the draft capital that we have to add a veteran quarterback and whatnot. Oh, I can't. we're not gonna go there just yet, but we're probably gonna end up going there anyway when we talk about the depth of the quarterback position. And we only got three right now, and as we know, Jalen Hurts has been the number one, on our backup being Gardner Minshew at number two, Reed Sinnett, their project guy, from Miami and from formerly Miami and Tampa Bay. Boasts a prototypical size at like 6'4", 225. A pretty common build for a quarterback that the Eagles have had as of recently. Minus Jalen Hurts, of course, whether it was Wentz or Nick Foles. Those are the preferred type of quarterbacks that we have known Lurie to like up to this point. Foles wasn't meant much of like a gunslinger like Carson, but they like those taller esque those taller quarterbacks that can see over the monstrous offensive line that we have, and while Hurts doesn't have that ability naturally, he was still able to shift himself in and out of the pocket, make plays with his legs, and that's the biggest question right now, is if that is a sustainable trait that can keep Hurts successful throughout his career. And while we stay on the conversation here of quarterback, we're going to play the stay or go game here and try and entertain ourselves. But I think I know where the four of us lie in terms of who we want to stay or go in terms of the quarterbacks. But before we get into it quick, where is the time going? We're already 47 minutes into this program, and yeah, again, I apologize for that minor interruption I had. That caught me completely off guard, but nonetheless, I do appreciate everybody that has given some sort of viewership to the presentation this evening, and I want to give a big thanks to the East Meets West, consisting of these three on the panel here, and AK Foothills and Vic, for making an appearance on the channel and keeping the series of Touchdown Talk alive. But as easy as it was for you guys to view the program that's going on right now, you might as well check out the three of their channels. Also, like I said, it's a quick click away to, see the kind of content that they give to you, as it is diverse as ever, and that's one of the best parts about the content creator community, especially for the Eagles. We all got our own wave that we flow with, and whatever kind of analogy you want to use there. But make sure you give these guys the same amount of support that you have been giving me up to this point. I know it's strong, but yeah, make sure you do so. And a big thanks again. So, all right, fellas, we'll start with this quarterback position, and I already know where this is going to go. Jalen Hurts, of course. I want him to be the starter in 2022. I think he has done enough to give us an intrigue on where he is going to take his game to the next level. And in other words, we know that there is something to build on there, but there's going to be a lot that goes into it, in which how the team ends up building around the quarterback and utilizing his strengths, blanketing his weaknesses temporarily until that development process comes in. And I hope for Hurts' sake that Brian Johnson also takes a step forward because he's as much in this process as Hurts is, and we have seen that close relationship backfire in a way, especially with the last quarterback that was here, and between him and Press Taylor. And I know Brian has known Hurts since childhood, but we don't need to go through that again. Let's be quite frank about that. But yeah, I mean, between the three of you, I think I know the answer here, but I'm I have the feeling that you guys are also on board in wanting to have Hurts as your starter and building around him. So I already know where AK is in terms of this answer. So unless you want to answer it again, if you're not going to go crazy and repeating yourself, but you know, yeah, it's
You ready?
yeah.
You ready? Okay. Let Russ eat.
Oh goodness. Ooh.
Let me include.
Let's go.
Okay. Speaking of talk about being caught off guard.
Yep.
Oh man. No, you really don't want you actually don't want Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I do.
Seriously.
He's not messing around.
Why
Oh,
why am I having a hard time with this?
Listen, man, what if I told you it would take you pick your team, next year's first, and Jalen Hurts? You still get your 2 firsts this year in 15 and 16.
Okay,
what
well,
if I told you? I don't care.
No. I asked him a question. You shush down there, sir. You shush down there. I was asking him. Shush! Shush! So that's what I'm saying. Pick 19 and next year's first, and Jalen Hurts for Russell Wilson. You just swap QBs and 2 firsts. So you still get 15 and 16.
Well, you have to you have to do a bit of a guarantee that Russ is even going to want to play for Philly in the first place. I think there's more suitable / entertaining options that that Russ can go for. Besides the Eagles, Tampa Bay could use a quarterback right now. For what it's worth, San Francisco is throwing Jimmy G in the conversation. Pittsburgh could use a quarterback.
Yeah, but none of them hold what we have. That's what I'm saying. Not just that, but it's what I brought up last night, man.
Right.
It's like I brought up last night. Russ is the one that got away from both Howie and Jeffrey. Now, like I said, I am all on board with Jalen Hurts. I even said that last night. I am all on board with Jalen Hurts. I'm looking at this from an honest, non-biased standpoint because I know my owner and I know my GM. He is the one that got away, and you know that. They have been oozing over Russ for many, 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 many years. And if they know that they can trade 1 first this year and 1 first next year and Jalen Hurts for Russell Wilson, that shit will be signed before it even gets faxed over. You know what I'm saying? Like Howie and them will pull that trigger. And then you set like we said, you sit there and you add like a Mike Williams or an Allen Robinson to this offense with Russell Wilson. And then I've also had a little birdie tell me that they're very, 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 very interested and high on Leonard Fournette. If you add Leonard Fournette into this offense as well with Miles Sanders, you have Russell Wilson, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, Allen Robinson, Mike Williams, or, Juju or whoever the heck they end up getting, and then you have Quez in the slot and whoever else. Dude, I'm telling you right now, I know you don't want him. I don't frankly want him either, but listen, they're going to get who they can get.
I know.
If all these other guys choose to go to other teams and Juju's the one sitting there, then that's the one they're going to go with. But no matter what, they're going to get one. But still, you can't guarantee anything because you need to see Hurts develop, and we all know this. But this ankle injury truly just now set this kid back from development because now he has to rehab. So that pushes him back a little bit, and that's fine. I'm all for waiting, like I said, but I don't know if they're all for waiting. You know, I'm Space.
I was gonna ask.
He's only taken 17 mil this year. That
And
is
we
all.
only got
Russ,
22.
that is
We
that
only
is
got
all.
22. We still need 10. Listen,
I'm just
all
saying.
about the numbers. The numbers.
Don't be
The numbers
surprised
don't add
if
up.
they do it. That's all
I
I'm
will
saying.
not be surprised if they won't be doing it. No. There's other teams that have capital just like we do. New York Giants. I was about to say the Redskins. Excuse me. The Washington
Dude,
football team. They
no
all got
one has the
capital.
capital we have. We have 3 firsts.
Dude,
No one has our capital.
I
The
think,
Jets and the
if I'm not
Giants
mistaken,
have
I'm pretty
two.
sure New York. Yeah, I would say New York has 2, and they can add in their second, but it's not going to take 3 first rounds.
We still have,
Again,
but we
Seattle's
still have 3 firsts in the end. We still have 3 firsts. No one has the capital
But
we have.
you
That's the whole
gotta
point.
understand, Seattle's not in a position to demand anything. Russ wants out. That's half the deal right there. We already know he doesn't want to be there. Half the battle's done. All the power's out of Seattle's hands. You're going to get with the best offers that's going to be made to you. Most likely, it's going to be Washington that's going to offer a first this year and next year. Russ is going to move on. If Cleveland's smart and they want to progress in that AFC, we've seen how weak it is. We've seen that the Bengals made the Super Bowl. If they were smart, they'd make a play for Russ. They get rid of Baker.
I
But again,
understand that,
these
but
are
remember what I
teams-
told
these
you.
teams
My source
have-
also said is what
I
did
got
they
it, but
tell
your source-
Jason Kelsey? What did they tell Jason
I
Kelsey?
I
Want
totally
to come?
understand, but I don't think that's what they told Jason Kelsey. I think Jason Kelsey's seen the team that he was with this year and seen that they can progress, they can grow and be better next year. It has nothing to do with Russell Wilson. You can't tell me that you're going to put your whole career for one more year on a guy you've never played with. You're not putting that much faith in Russell Wilson. I don't care who you are. Again, Eric Waddell ain't coming back for Russell Wilson. He came back for Matt Stafford, that whole team. Why? Because they're already in a position to be in the Super Bowl. That's why he came back. There are no players coming after any kind of player. Tom Brady may be the exception. But again, there's no one's going to come out and say, I'm not going to go retire because I feel that Russell Wilson's going to take you to the Super Bowl in one season. When he hasn't done it with Seattle. Since that defense has been dismantled, he hasn't done it. He can't do it. Again,
Bro,
it
that's
doesn't
the
make sense
point.
why the
You not know how good our offensive line is? He would be wonders behind our offensive line. He's never
But we're
seen an
talking about an
offensive
offensive
line.
line.
That's one side
We're
of the
talking about an
football.
offensive line where we're constantly going through injuries and constantly playing ring around the rosy with the line. Where our line is good, but let's be honest, it's not always healthy. So we can't say it's great. We can't.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. They were number 1 in rushing this year. I can say they're fucking great all I want. They are great.
That Russell Wilson scenario carries so many ifs. It's not even funny. There's so many things that have to happen just to get him here. And what happens if it does? It sets this team back. It honestly does. You can't say it doesn't.
Okay. So hold on. So I'm telling you that you get rid of 1 first this year, which is pick 19, and 1 next year, and you still get to keep 2 firsts, and that's setting us back. You still get 2 firsts out of the ordeal. That's tied with everyone else. You can still get 2 edge rushers right there at 15 and 16. You still have your second. You still have your 2 thirds. You still have everything else. You barely gave anything up for him. You can still build a defense this year and into next year with everything that you have. You're really not giving up that much.
Doesn't
What
Russ
you're not factoring
have a
in,
no
you're
trade
not
clause
factoring the timetable
anyway?
that Russ has left.
Bro, anything is possible, man. Anything.
But the thing is,
truly
you're not
possible.
factoring how much
You
time
can
Russell
waive a
Wilson
no
has
trade
left.
clause. You can
Does he
waive
have
it.
3 seasons? 5 seasons? 2 seasons?
Bro, I don't
What does he
fucking
have
know.
left?
Who
But
am I to
again, you
judge
have to
that?
But my
No, I
thing is,
don't
you're
have to
making
know
that
that. Who am I to have to judge that? I'm not him.
But I'm saying, if you're making that move, you already know. That's what I'm saying. You already have at least 3 seasons guaranteed that you know you're going to get to the Super Bowl. If you don't have that, you're not making that move. You're not making a move just because of the name Russell Wilson. It doesn't carry that much weight. I'm sorry.
Maybe not to you, but it does to a lot of other people.
Then how come every other team isn't trying to call Seattle and get him?
Are you shitting me? There's a lot of teams who are
What team?
trying to get a hold of Seattle to try and get him. A lot of teams, the
Who's the first
Giants,
team-
the Washington, us, dude, anyone who needs a quarterback right now, if Russ would become available tomorrow, everyone would be dropping everything to fucking get that man.
It's because there's a limited amount of teams that they want 2 first-rounders this year. That's what they're asking for. There's not a whole lot of teams out there with first
They're
rounders.
asking for too much.
Right. I agree.
And you got to think free agency in the draft. So Russ is so good, he's going to have to wait after free agency and after the draft.
I mean, I agree with Vic to an extent
if he's
that
good, he gets picked up beforehand.
In AK scenario of us giving up next year's first, that does kind of set us back to a degree because we have, I mean, yes, getting Russell would be great, but we have a lot of other holes that we need to fill on this team, and I don't know, just not having a first rounder next year would kind of sting.
Yeah, but if you could listen, we have seen the Kansas City Chiefs and other teams win Super Bowls lately with a very high-powered offense and a mediocre defense. Okay, we have seen that. You know, Kansas City has not always had the top best defenses. I mean, what were they this year? 25th? Something like that? Like, they weren't even that big, but look how far they made it. When they made it to the Super Bowl and won, I believe their defense was like 15th or something like that. But they did it, and they made it. You know, because in the end, if you have an offense that no one can stop, your defense realistically has to stop them one time, and you win the game. Realistically, if everything would go right, that's how it works. Okay?
But Kansas City's offense did get stopped, didn't they? They got stopped.
Exactly, they did, yeah. But that's the whole part of scheming and whatnot. But that's what I'm saying, man. Like, when I'm talking about if they choose to bring Russ in, like I said, Vic, this is something they've planned for 8 months, so they know each and every piece they're going to bring in, and they know exactly what they were doing well before they make these moves, whether it comes next week, the week after, or the week after that. Whatever moves we make in this offseason, he's been planning for 8 fucking months.
I'll tell you this right now.
So if you're saying they're going to make this move, then you know it has to be a guaranteed, right? It has to be that you're willing to do everything at once. Because if you mess this up, what are you saying to Jalen? You think he's going to play for you next season? You think that's not my
problem. I don't own the team.
Again,
I don't manage the team. I'm only here talking, and I'm giving you a realistic outlook of what these men might do. And we all know that they are ballsy-ass dudes, and they will do crazy-ass moves at any moment, at any time. That's just who they are. You know,
but those things you have to look at because that's what factors in making that move. If they're not looking into it, then I don't think they've done their homework. If they're not sure on it, then they can't make that move. They have to be.
All I'm saying is, if they feel that if they acquire Russell Wilson and this team automatically can be turned around into a win now team, they will make that move. That's what I'm saying. If they feel they bring in Russell Wilson, they bring in Leonard Fournette, and they bring in like Juju or Allen or Mike Williams, and having Devontae Smith, Mike Williams, and Quez Watkins with Leonard Fournette and Dallas Goedert automatically makes them a Super Bowl contender, they're going to fucking make that move. Whether they want to, whether they think that Jalen can develop to be that guy or not, they know right now and then that they have a guaranteed Russell Wilson no matter what.
Okay, but
that's the opposite of what we've been doing.
I know.
We built through the draft, you're sprinkling free agents. Now you're saying we're going to go spending spree. We don't have the capital to do it. We don't have the money to do all that. That's what I'm saying. These moves don't make sense.
I mean, how many times can we say that, though, that Howie's made a move that doesn't make sense? He's done that a lot. So, like AK said, don't be surprised if he does pull some shit off like this, because it won't surprise me in the least bit. Even if it, like you said, even if it doesn't make sense financially, Vic, he'll do it like he just will, because if they want to win now, that's going to give us the best chance in their eyes.
And not just that, bro, but if he's been planning this out for 8 months, if he's been planning this out for 8 months, trust me, he knows what his cap is. You don't think for 1 minute he's already looked ahead to see what money he can swindle from what player to make the cap go up a little bit more into our favor? That's what he does. He's always kicked the can down the road. That's what he does. So I would not be surprised.
But everything is based on what we perceive Howie to be. That could not be what he is in real life. He could be
No,
something
what we
totally different
no,
again. He made
what
the
we
move
make
this year
our
to where
assumptions off of is what we see. And what I'm telling you is everything that I've always seen this man do. I mean, we've made trades that
but what I think
blew people's fucking minds that made no sense.
but what
You
I've seen
know,
out of him the
aka
past couple
LaShawn
seasons.
McCoy. You know, like
But he's
Jackson.
focused on the draft, and that's what I'm saying. If we're going off what he's done, he's focused on the draft. He hasn't gone crazy in free agent. We had what big name have we brought in? Steve Nelson, was that really a big name? What big name have we brought in here? He doesn't do that. If we're going off what he's done, he stayed in the draft. He's built off that. He's sprinkled in some free agents, and he's risked that linebacker position. That's all he's done. So what you're saying is he's going to do a complete 180. He's going to spend. Now, I've never seen Howie do that, aside of the 1 year where it almost got him fired in 2012. That dream team. So you're saying he's not going to learn from that past mistake? Because that's what pretty much
All I'm
started.
telling
That's
you
what
is
set him
don't
on the
be
path where he is
surprised if
now.
he does it. Because he just saw what Sean McVay and
I
the
would
Rams
be very
did. And
surprised if
trust
he
me,
does it.
Howie is ballsy enough to pull that off. He is
No,
ballsy
but-
enough to take that chance. And
but-
that's what I'm saying. Don't be surprised if he does it.
But
Ultimately, though, it's not going to be his decision. Who cuts the checks? Lori cuts the checks. That's going to be the person to make the final decision whether we get number 3 or not. Bottom line, Howie's just the scapegoat.
Yeah, and we all know that he wants an air raid offense. That's all Jeffrey Lurie ever wanted. And trust me, if he knows that Russell Wilson's available, he knows what Russell Wilson can provide. And we all know how much Jeffrey loves him. Dude, you might as well just make the motherfucker rain. You know what I'm saying? Because it's going to happen. He Googles over him all the fucking time.
The rebuttal to that I have is, yeah, there's ways to work around the detail of the transaction to which how you can acquire Russell Wilson. And I can't imagine that Howie Roseman is not going to use common sense in this situation, because if we look at the scenario with the Rams, we look at the scenario with Tampa Bay, them two being the two most notable, those teams have something in common with each other that we're not in the same conversation. Those two teams were a quarterback away from being true contenders. You know, whether it was Tampa upgrading from Jameis Winston to Tom Brady. They already had an offense in place. They already had a defense in place. The Rams already had an offense in place. They already had a defense in place, and they just continued to bolster from there. They bolstered their offense with Odell this year. They bolstered their defense over the last couple of years with Jalen Ramsey and Von Miller. So, and when I look at the Eagles have a lot more. The Eagles have a lot more work to do, where you can say that this team is not a quarterback away from competing to the same level as the Rams and the Bucks, who were at the top of the totem pole, especially in the NFC conference. And yeah, while we have still applaud the Eagles to a point for beating up on bad teams, much like the Dallas Cowboys did at some point this season, we also got to be realistic about it at the same time. The football team as a whole, because we're not separating offense and defense. The football team as a whole was not able to consistently beat teams that had a record above 500. That's point blank. That's fact. Part of that reasoning is that we have issues all across the board, and quarterback is, to me, well, not the least of our problems, but it's a lesser tier problem. And then I think of this Russell Wilson situation, and I'm thinking, well, for one, does he not have a no trade clause in his contract to where he can nix wherever he goes, no matter what the deal is that's placed on the table? I think he has built enough of that clout in Seattle to where he deserves to go where he wants to if he does not want to stay there. Carson did not have that luxury, and rightfully so, because we already know the we already know the level of his demise and how much he has regressed. And now look what's happening in Indianapolis. They're looking to move on from him too after them missing the playoffs. And so, I mean, until there's a confidence level built in to where this front office understands that the team is in a good enough position to make an upgrade at quarterback and have more of a reliance on rentals for a win now mode that's only going to last maybe a year. As enamored as they could be with a Russell Wilson trade, to me from a perspective of building a football team, it doesn't make enough sense for the future. That's just where I am. It doesn't make enough sense to me, regardless of the just regardless of the potential packages that may look good on paper, but no, I mean, I'd rather build a draft.
How many picks do we have this year? 11, right?
Yeah, we got 11. 3 of those.
So you get rid of one draft pick, and you're saying you can't make your roster work with 10 draft picks?
It's not gonna. You're not getting rid of just one pick. It's not gonna take one pick alone to get Russell
This
Wilson.
year, that's what I said. 19 this year, 1 next year. So this year, you're only losing 1. That means you still have 10 draft picks. You're saying you can't build a solid defense and draft solid defense with 10 picks?
I don't think the Seahawks are going to do that deal.
I honestly think that what
you
Howard's going to do with these 3 picks is he's going to actually use one of them to move down and acquire another pick next season. There's going to be some team on the back end that's going to want someone. They're going to move up to 15 or 16. How we can give one of those up? Move on. You have 15 or 19, 16 or 19. You still got first-round picks. Then you have another later on in the draft, and you pick one for next year. That's a win-win on both ends. You still got your first 3 picks, and you have a first pick for next season. That's how we move.
I know.
Yeah, and I mean you have to look at where
what the man will do.
You have to look at where the picks are in the first place. And while this year's draft class was pretty successful, let's call it what it is. We did have a good draft class last year. So you would have to imagine that Howie's not going to stay 1 for 1. He's going to want to go 2 for 2. However, some of those picks didn't get a whole lot of time on the field, whether it was through injury or them just getting beat out on the depth chart. We didn't see much of Jacoby Stevens. We didn't see much of Marlon Tuipulotu. We didn't see much of Teron Jackson and Patrick Johnson. So, even though we would essentially give up 1 pick, you can't guarantee that those lower tiered picks are going to impact the team right away, and then you're going to end up making temporary patches in terms of free agency when you might not even have the money to carry out all of the transactions that you're willing to do, especially if you're trying to satisfy both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. I just don't think it would work that way.
Well, you can't guarantee me that 19 is going to work out though either.
It depends who you pick, and in that case, it would have to be best player available based on how the board falls. So I mean, and as far as I'm concerned, between 15, 16, and 19, I don't know. It's looking like we're in desperate need of edge rushers. if anything, there's going to be a lot of them available. I don't think Aiden Hutchinson is going to fall to 15, but there's going to be a couple of others involved, and we'll see where they land because the combine hasn't even happened yet. But you can just go down the list of how many positions that there are in need, and right now the defense outweighs the offense. So if you're going to end up prioritizing one position and go all out on one position over addressing, like it to me, I'm thinking of it as, the trade for Russell Wilson to me is like putting a Band-Aid on a shotgun wound. It's just not going to work because you got too many holes that you have to remedy. There's too many holes that you got to fill in, and most of those holes are on the defensive side of the ball. In the means that we've already witnessed a first-time defensive coordinator struggle to get any kind of consistency going. So while you're bolstering the offense and you have confidence in the offense to put points on the board, and your defense can't stop anybody, then what's the point of upgrading one position to that degree while you're still having issues everywhere else?
We could get into this deeper, but I'll just let it go. Just all I'm going to leave you with is you heard it here first.
Okay.
That's all I got to say.
That's fine. I mean, I take and I know that you're taking it from a non-biased perspective, but knowing where this football team is right now, I just think when you make that kind of trade, there's more of a risk to it than there is a reward. I don't think we're in that kind of position right now, knowing how many positions on this team that we have to adjust going into this offseason. So
also know why I did too is because that way if he does do it, I won't have a heart attack. So I'm setting myself up for it. That way when it happens, I won't be shocked. Unlike y'all, you'll be like, what the fuck? And like probably trip out and start drinking alcohol. And what did we just do? But me, I'll be like, I saw it coming. I won't, it doesn't hurt.
Well, I don't think
the worst is Shady McCoy getting traded.
That's what I'm saying, man. We've done stupid shit before. Why not again? That's what I'm saying. Anything can happen. I'm just looking at it as a guy that these two obsess over, and if he ever becomes available and they have the opportunity, they're going to try. That's why, like I said, in the back of your mind, it's always there.
I think a lot of it comes from the perception that we have of Roseman. And again, I really think that because of the past mistakes, he learned from it. Again, you've seen a lot of things that he's done in the past. He hasn't really dabbled, like I said before, he hasn't really dabbled into free agency like that. He's not going after marquee players. Yeah, he made that trade for Slade, but he waited. Slade wanted to be on this team 2 seasons prior to when we acquired him, and he was at a high cost. How he waited? He sat back. He waited until the price was right to get Slade. So that's what I'm saying. When you say he's going to dabble into free agency, especially to go after a big name, a quarterback like Russell Wilson, that's something that he's avoided doing for these past seasons. Going on almost 10 years now. This is the 9th season that he's avoided doing that. I don't think just because of Wilson's available and that's someone that he missed on before that he's going to go after it. Because if he did, right now he'd be trying to get DK Metcalf. Right now he'd be trying to get Justin Jefferson, like I said before. Those are the guys that we missed that got away. Those are the guys that can make differences on this team. Not Wilson so much.
I understand that, man. I really do. Okay? But that's what I'm saying, though. I'm not worried about Howie. You're right. I'm not. I actually believe Howie's actually in a very good mindset. Like I said, everybody might start calling me a Hurts hater. I'm not. I want him here next year. I'm just thinking rationally because guess what? There's somebody even bigger than Jeffrey or Howie, and that's Jeff. And I'm telling you right now, if Jeff even sniffs it and he wants it and he tells Howie to go get it, Howie will fucking do it. You know what I'm saying? It's not about Howie might sit there and say, yes, Jalen Hurts is our starter because he might believe that. But you don't know. Tomorrow he might wake up, snap his fingers, and say, hey, I want Russ. Go get him. And he has nothing to say about it. There's nothing he can do about it. That's what I'm saying. Don't think It's just Howie. No, it don't stop there. It goes higher. I'm worried about Jeff more than I am Howie.
Yeah, I get it, but I don't think like I said, we know Jeff for now after stories come out that he's meddled, but I don't think he's as bad, like say as a Amar or Tesh. I don't think he's as bad as a Jones. I don't think he's
Bro,
into
he
it that
let
much.
his son pick JJ. He let his
Where
son
did
pick
that come from though?
JJ.
Where did that story come from? 'Cause, like,
I'll tell you after the show.
okay, let's
And
take
as
it.
soon as I tell you, you'll know. But no lie, bro. I know for a matter of fact that Jeffrey Lurie's son was the reason that JJ is on this team. Like, how does that happen? You can't fucking do that. What the
Well,
fuck
I
is
mean,
that? Jeffrey Lurie's son? I didn't even know his son even had any affiliation with
I didn't know
us.
he had a son to begin with, but I
Right?
hope
Like,
that they
what?
learned their lesson. And again, they're paying scouts for a reason. They're doing
Yeah.
hard work all year round. They're going to these schools. They're taking time away from their family for a reason. If they're going through all that, be respectful and at least take the 5 minutes to listen to what they got to say, or even put it in consideration. Don't just automatically have a thought in your head and just go within the second round. Again, because we've seen how bad that could be if that's the case. If it's that his son wanted to pay JJ, I think, or Whiteside for whatever the accolades he got in his last year of college. Again, if that's the case, you got to see how that can fail. How making a move like that and allowing someone to make a pick just because of nepotism, that's going to fail in the long run. So again, if you're paying these professionals to do a job, let them do their job. Listen to what they got to say.
Well, bro, how many articles have you seen about us from past players that have left here saying that they've never seen such a hands-on owner in their life? Like even worse than Jerry Jones. And no lie, dude, Jeffrey is literally in the every day-to-day activity. Like he is involved in so much shit, and it's like that's where we mess up. He's actually in too much. Sometimes he meddles in shit he shouldn't. It's like, dude, you pay these guys to do a job, let them do their job.
Yeah, yeah. And listen, that's something that hopefully after a while he understands that when you meddle so much, it affects your teams in a negative way. There's a lot of
Yeah.
coaches, a lot of owners that done that. You seen Cleveland with the Haslam family. They meddled so much, and they had coaches come in every year. It was a carousel. They finally got it right, and they stepped away for the most part. Maybe that's what he needs to do if he's the main issue.
Yeah,
Wishful thinking.
Hey, but when you pay, hundreds of $1 millions for a team, I guess you can do whatever you want. It's up to you. But
Try
you just got to
billions.
understand. But you have to understand that there's hundreds of thousands of people that follow that team that give you the revenue to live the life that you do. You should honor them and kind of make sure that you do right by them.
So let's see if we can. Get through the. Let's see if we can try and skim through the rest of the offense here, since once again, the debate on the quarterback position never fails to never fails to cease to exist. And so I mean, I think we already have an idea on what we want for wide receiver. No, nobody wants Rager here anymore. We're already, we got a positivity going with Quez Watkins and Devontae Smith. Greg Ward is a interesting conversation in itself. I mean, you got that, you got that rotational veteran piece, but he's not really anything to write home about. So I think the consensus there is that we could definitely use a more skilled veteran presence to not only elevate the team, but elevate the players in that room. I mean, Devontae Smith has spoken on it for at least a couple of times now that he would most certainly benefit from another veteran receiver in that room. Somebody like somebody like an Allen Robinson or or a Mike Williams. People aren't too high on Juju Smith-Schuster, but I mean, you can imagine how excellent of a slot piece he would be if you don't exactly go for that 50-50 type of receiver, which I think is the top choice right now that we could use for the position to help these guys out and really take some of the attention away from Devontae Smith, so he can. So he's not taking as much punishment, with us still concerned on his size and him having to bulk up a little bit to help with his durability in the NFL. So I don't think we'll necessarily touch on receiver. I think we all know where we're going, in that regard, and and that's not including the draft class. But the offensive line, nothing much going on there. We already know the amount of depth that we have, in the trenches. That this team, in terms of drafting or free agent acquisitions, they always manage to do a great job in keeping the offensive line, stout. No pun intended. But they make sure to. They make sure to maintain a full cupboard year after year, and we always seem to do a good job in picking the talent, or claiming some guys off waivers to have some practice squad pieces that we can build up that can maybe do a little bit of a small contribution, type of role, especially when there's guys that that go through injury a little too frequently. Unfortunately, guys like Jack Driscoll can't catch a break, and it was sad to see Brandon Brooks retire. But the amount of injuries that he has sustained as of recently, especially with that Achilles, it was that time. But we already know that we got guys. We already know that we got guys behind Brooks and Kelsey. If he and I know the word is more positive than negative about his return, but we already know that we do have some replacements for his position on whether we want to move Landon Nickerson from the left guard spot to the center position. I'm not necessarily for that. You don't fix what's not broken. But we already know that Herbie is a serviceable piece. We've kept LaRaven Clark on the practice squad, even though he's been on and off of the short-term IR. Suo Opeta is another guy that they like. Jack Anderson, Andre Dillard. Andre Dillard, I think, has fallen, out of the favoritism there, so he might end up being a trade asset, maybe for a team like Cincinnati. but I think we already know what the deal is there. He's just been a disappointment, up to this point in his career, and sometimes you don't hit on them. For as good as Jeff Stoutland is, sometimes you can't help but get to the point where you reach a ceiling. You reach a ceiling with these guys, and we have known since Andre has gotten drafted that he is, one of the least versatile offensive linemen on this football team, and he just can't seem to get any kind of positive rhythm. So despite all that, you still have the continuing. The continuing surge of a guy like Jordan Mailata, who was another one that got paid this year. We had three Eagles get contract extensions. So now, is that to necessarily say that knowing Howie Roseman and the philosophy that he has built as a GM over the years, that he's not going to pay attention to offensive or defensive linemen in this draft? Absolutely not. He's still going to add assets to the trenches and keep them, and keep them full to his liking. So, I mean, I think we all have a good idea on where the receiver position is. We have a good idea where the offensive line is at this point in time. To me, the two questionable positions on offense, outside of what we talked about, is tight end and running back. Tight end specifically because we already know Dallas Goedert is the number one. He was paid like a number one. He did have some, disappointing moments in, in not making sure to catch the football before we run with it. He has had frequent drops over the final few games of the year, but I don't think that's anything to throw a red flag for and be completely concerned on. We know the type of talent that Goddard is. We've been asking for the last couple of years to just make the transition, and we knew where Ertz was going, but it was becoming Goddard's time to be the number one. And now that it has finally happened, he's making the strides that we were hoping for. But you look behind Goddard, and well, what's there to what do you really see behind him? Okay, so Jack Stoll was a nice story this year. Let's be real about that. Undrafted rookie out of Nebraska. He has made a decent stride for himself so far. Is there things that he needs to work on? Absolutely. Much like any undrafted rookie, much like any late round pick, first round pick, it doesn't matter. Anybody is going to need development at some point in time. But credit to Jason Michael for doing a good job, with this group for one. But I look at Jack Stoll, I look at Tyree Jackson. Tyree Jackson, another one that we have had quite a bit of excitement for, being that Logan Thomas type of mold that the Washington Commanders, have been building with, that former quarterback turned different, a different position. And in this case, both of them have went from quarterback to tight end. Tyree was looking very promising in the offseason, especially through training camp and OTAs and everything, using his size to his advantage. And we became enamored at the fact that at some point we could have a 6'7" guy playing tight end, and who's gonna really affect this guy in terms of contested catches and whatnot. But he suffers two pretty nasty injuries. The first one, he literally fell on his back. He had some back issues for a little bit, and then he comes back and tears his ACL. Much like Jack Driscoll, the two of them can't catch a break. So I don't necessarily know where that is going to go going forward with Tyree. And then you got the good old journeyman in Richard Rodgers, and watch us at some point, maybe like week 5 through 7 or so. We end up bringing him back for depth, because it never seems to fail that at some point Richard Rodgers is just going to return. But it's still a problem to me, because I'm not seeing a clear-cut tight end 2 here, and knowing how the Eagles have been through that philosophy, and watching the minor evolution of Sirianni's offense, there was times where he did like to run third, and take advantage of that, that mix up of a 12-13 personnel type of look, to have an extra couple of blockers out there when we're using the run game to our full advantage. So I guess one of you can take the floor first on this, and where do you guys truly see the direction of the tight end position going outside of Goddard? And do we more so address it in free agency, or is there somebody suitable enough in the draft?
Okay, you want to take it?
All right. I mean, if you're talking free agency, you're probably looking at like an Eric Ebron or something like that, someone in that nature. But listen, I like Jackson. I like Stoll. I forget right off the top of my head what our tight ends coach is, but listen, he's not too bad. Huh?
Jason Michael.
Thank you. Yeah. Listen, he was the tight end coach for the Indianapolis Colts. He actually got a really good season out of Moali Cox. So he's good at developing tight ends. My only concern with Jackson and Stoll are, can they stay healthy? You know, they both had a pretty bad year on the injury side. So, I mean, hopefully they come back better next year and they can stay healthy. But in all honesty, man, I'm probably grabbing one in like the fourth or fifth round in the draft. You know, I think you should always keep your eye out on future tight ends. That's a very important position. You know, um, but yeah, I'm there's some pretty good prospects out there this year. So
Yeah, I never felt that the Eagles were the kind of team to where they primarily feature one tight end. It's never necessarily been that way. I mean, you can go as we in terms of recency, we can go as far back and watch the Ertz and Selleck connection, and then it transitioned to the Ertz and Trey Burton connection. Take of that what you will, but Trey Burton was a very good contributor in that
yes.
in that group of tight ends when he took over a little bit in terms of snaps between him and Brent Selleck, and then you can go from that. You can go to Ertz to Goddard, and now I think a similar transition is going to happen. Like this team, this team is still going to want somebody that can. They're still going to want the depth at tight end. A guy that can do a little bit of everything, and I don't know if there's much of an injury concern with Jack Stoll necessarily. The only thing I remember from last season is that maybe he had a ankle issue or maybe a freak concussion, but that was about it. I don't remember Stoll going through anything more major than that or or miss a significant amount of time, but. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past the Eagles to still make a move at that spot. I know that it's not necessarily popular right now because because a lot of people feel that wide receiver is a bigger need, and respectfully so. But we've known throughout the years how this offense is constructed, and they always like to have some good insurance, especially at the TE2 position. So, do you see it the same way, Vic, as the two of us do?
A little differently. I think, yeah, it's a little mystery behind Goddard. You have, a lot of talent in Jackson. And,
Mm-hmm.
they were really interested in him. I saw him in the preseason against Pittsburgh. He was he was a beast out there. He was
Yeah,
among them
I
like
remember
boys.
he developed quite a rapport with Gardner Minshew. The two of them looked good together. Yeah,
Yeah, and the thing was, is well, he looked good with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco was out there at the
that as
time.
well. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But the thing was, is
How
his
quickly
route.
forget.
Yeah, exactly. But it's the route running, the speed, the hands, how physical he was in the
Hmm.
run game. Also, he was a good blocker. You got the kid has a lot of talent, especially when he came in. He came into the Eagles as a former quarterback, wanting to a position change, and was open
Yeah,
to anything. And he took to the tight end position. But the thing is, I think that they're going to want to stick behind him. But again, with this injury, it makes it hard. He might fall, on the depth chart, might be a third. Um, as for Stahl, he's a good blocking tight end. Again, he still needs work on his route running. Hands aren't that good, and that's what we like. We like a pass catching tight end as well as a blocker. To look in the draft, that's a possibility, but I don't think that's the way they're going to go. AK mentioned Mo Alley Cox, a former Colt, also a free agent. That's a
yeah,
guy who can be a good signing. He knows the system. He'd come in at a good cheap price, team friendly deal. He has the experience as a veteran, someone who could assist Goddard. I think that's the way that the Eagles may go. They may lean to Mo Alley Cox or someone in their free agency. I I like David Njoku, but again, he may command 4 million plus. I don't know if that's the way to go for them. I don't know if they want to spend that much on a backup tight end. But like I said, Njoku, I excuse me, not Njoku, Mo Ali Cox, I think that's someone who's pretty much right up their alley.
yeah. I think that's fair enough, and for all the I guess for the expectations surrounding Tyree, yeah, it's been a shame to this point that he can't catch a break, and it only concerns me going forward as I have witnessed, in terms of basketball with the Mavericks trading Kristaps Porzingis away to the Washington Wizards, and like the taller, it seems like the taller you feel, or the taller you are. But of course, this comparison is going to be it's going to be terrible because these two players aren't built the same whatsoever. I mean, Tyree's like 6'7", Porzingis is 7'2", 7'3", and he's a lot more slender. But it still reminds me of it in a way where the taller you are, it's you're your legs get a little more like they get more vulnerable, and they get more prone to those kinds of injuries. So I'm wondering, especially with football being a lot more physical of a sport than basketball is, I'm wondering where that's going to put Tyree moving forward. Like if this, because it was an ACL tear, I'm wondering how well he's going to bounce back from it, and how much longevity can he sustain after it's all said and done. But at the same time, do not put it past the Birds to do not put it past the Eagles to add competition to that spot, especially when we're talking about the depth or the lack thereof at the position. I mean, as of late, we've been only talking about Goddard and Jack Stoll just because of the fact of Tyree Jackson being injured. But, and then you look at Noah Togiai, who just got a reserve futures deal, who's still sitting on the practice squad. You're going to have to do something to ramp up the competition there. And, maybe there's going to be a prospect in the draft that'll do enough of that, maybe to the level of between Togiai and Stoll until Tyree gets healthy. But, as far as I'm concerned, Goddard is in a league of his own right now. And it would be a battle for the number 2 spot come training camp. Definitely. So with that, I guess we'll then transition quick to the final spot that we can discuss on the offense, and that would be the running back position. And I think this offers just as much intrigue as the tight end position does. Austin the Sports, what is up? Do not forget about your chat. Thank you for tuning in to a program that is approaching 2 hours already, and I don't know. I don't know, y'all, but the vibe the vibe to me just seems a little bit weird, and I know that I know Foothills talked about that he had to go, and I just had that random occurrence with my basement. Like it sucks, because I think we projected a higher form of entertainment here, and this is just me. It's me speaking my mind. That's how I think. That's what I'm thinking right now. I know y'all are probably on a different page within like it's going fine, but I'm like I'm in a mindset of I want the best or nothing, and sometimes it really works against me. Like that's just how my personality works. But no, if y'all are cool with how everything's going, I do appreciate y'all sticking around. But
Heck yeah.
Let's get into the running backs here, because we know guys like I think Boston Scott is set to be a restricted free agent instead of unrestricted. I know that obviously Jordan Howard has already worked out. His contract has already expired, so that's two guys that are going to be up in the air. I don't necessarily see Jordan Howard as a favorite for returning when, AK has already discussed the idea of Leonard Fournette, Jason Huntley being more of a special teams asset instead of an offensive asset. And then, you got your rookie going into year 2 in Kenny Gainwell. And then, that leaves you with your number 1 in Miles Sanders, who to this point has flashed a lot of talent. I mean, you know that it's there, but at the same time, there is a bit of a consistency issue, and then there's an issue with him in terms of staying on the football field. And as much as I hated at the time when I made my prediction going into 2021, I thought that Miles was going to have about I thought he was going to have about 1,800 all-purpose yards, and I think he came pretty close. But the unfortunate side to that is I knew he wasn't going to play the whole season, and lo and behold, you've seen the ankle injuries plague him again. I think he went through a minor hamstring. You also seen that I think it was a broken hand that he ended up playing through in the playoff game. So, man, there's questions to be answered at the running back spot. I mean, you're going to have Miles coming into the contract year. We already talked about Boston and Jordan. Jason Huntley is what he is, and then you got Kenny Gainwell in year 2. But you don't want to do a disservice to this football team, especially with the offensive line that we have, and still not address the running back position. Especially when it looks especially when it looks a little bit underwhelming the way it does. So again, the questions arising. The question arises again, like we just did with the tight ends, as Foothills returns. For this segment, good to have you back, buddy, once more. We got another voice to talk about these running backs. So, as again, AK, I'll start with you on this one, since Leonard Fournette is one of your favorites. Where are you going to take the running back position in terms of the draft and free agency? Where is your priority going to lie more? And how much of a confidence level do you have in the depth as it sits right now?
Well, in all honesty, I believe Scott, McLeod, and Barnett all find their way to Jacksonville and go play for Doug. That's honestly how I look at that one. But I don't think Jordan will be here next year either, especially if you can pull a Leonard Fournette. When it comes to Miles, I love Miles to death, man. I'm a Penn State fan. But listen, I'm not paying him. Halfbacks are a dime a dozen. If it's up to me, bro, I'm pretty much taking a halfback every year in every draft until I find one. This year I'm going like third or fourth. Listen, I'm okay with having a running back by committee. That's how we always have done it, and I'm okay with that. You see how it works for Cleveland. You see how it works for a lot of these other teams. It's okay to have more than one good running back, but Miles, with all his injuries and stuff, and dude, he had no touchdowns this year, none.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I'm not paying you. I'll just keep going with draft picks, in all honesty, because if you can get like a Carry on Williams, the Notre Dame kid, or the kid from Florida, or one of these kids in the third round, and you grab him, and he ends up being what we want out of Miles, then hey, I have no problem with it, bro. Because, like I said, it's about the name on the front, not the name on the back.
Yeah. I think Kenneth Walker is another. I think he's another.
Michigan.
The guy out of the kid out of Michigan State, I think so.
Yeah, I'm okay.
There's, like he said, man, there's plenty of running backs. Running backs are down to dozen. I don't think again, like I said, with our cap space, we can't waste capital on a running back right now, especially one who, he got yards, but again, when you look at everything as a whole, how he got there every game he was going, where we coming from behind? Was it the fact that we were leaning on the run at the time? Why were we depending on him when we got into the red zone? What is it that he can't stay on the field? There's so many factors you have to think about. Then you want to give him a contract. Right now, he hasn't earned that. If you do sign him, it'd be something very team friendly. But again, you still got 2 seasons to think about that. Everyone thinks this is the end. It's not. He actually has 2 more seasons left before you have to.
Are we talking about Leonard, or are we talking about Miles?
I'm talking about Miles.
Oh, okay. No, this is his last year coming up. Like he plays
another season after this.
No, this is his last year coming up. He's a free agent
Okay.
after this year. That's why I said I'd sign Fournette if you can get him for the right price, and then I'd keep Miles, let him play out his contract, and then let him walk in free agency, and just roll with Leonard Fournette and pray to God he worked out, and then groom the next guy up behind him.
Yeah, like I said, I totally agree with you in that Leonard Fournette. If that's something that could work out, I think that'd be great. He's an all around back, especially now when you see him in the passing game. He stepped it up a lot in Tampa, and I think he got shortchanged when he was with Jacksonville. I think for a lot of it, he got blamed for things that were not even in his control. He tried his best, and he kept his head down, even when they were talking bad about him, and he kept his head down in Tampa. So hopefully we can come through and we can acquire him. But the draft too, there are a lot of talented backs in the draft that I think
Yep.
we have an opportunity to get. Like we said, we mentioned all those guys. Bryce Hall is the guy I mentioned. They'd still be there in the third, second round, possibly even the fourth round. So I think there are a lot of decisions to make. For Miles, I think if he's going to be around next season, he needs to know like it's now or nothing. There are more options. You're not the only running back. They can move on from him. It's going to be tough looking for another team. I don't think he's going to want to go through that. And I think for Miles, a lot have been, up against him. Again with the injuries, it's not anything serious, but it's things that's taking him time off the field, which again he has no control over. But again, that's something that counts against him, better or for worse. Now, when he's on the field, he has to be there when we need him. He needs to be the guy that we're counting on to get that six. He can't be like, all right, it's third down, we're going to need Gainwell in here. You should be the guy that's counted on, and right now you're not. So unless he can step that up, I honestly don't see him being here that much longer. But
No lie, bro. Can we all agree on something? If for us to continue and contain Miles Sanders and his services on this team, this kid better come out next year and have like 1,600 yards and like 15 tutties, like a breakout season. I'm talking like it better be fucking fantastic. You know what
He
I'm
would
saying?
it would be great for him to have a whole season.
You're muted.
Yo, you're muted. It
Oh,
would be
okay.
great for him to have a full season and
Oh,
also,
I heard him.
like you said, contributed and scoring more points.
I mean, Miles. I think we've seen enough out of Miles. We've seen enough from Miles to know that he's not. I mean, unless he does have some kind of epiphany and has a huge season this next year. From what we've seen, though, Miles is never going to be a true number one guy. He is going to be better suited to be a complimentary back. And if we get Fournette, then yeah, I would love to see what he could do as a complimentary back. But we can't depend on him, and we can't depend on him in the red zone. And that's when you need your running backs. And I know I've said this before. That's when you need your running backs to be the most successful. And that's where he's, especially this last season, where he had the least amount of success. So, you want your running backs to have to be averaging probably a touchdown a game. Your starting running back, at least a touchdown a game. And like AK said, he didn't have any this year. And if we're dependent on him hitting a home run of a 20-yard longer or a 20-yard run or longer to score a touchdown, then we're wasting our time. We have to find somebody who can be more consistent. And I say that consistency, that regards not only his play on the field, but his availability to be out there on the field.
Yeah, and no disrespect
And
to
it's
him, like, he's a poor man shape. Let's be honest. He's a poor man shape. He's not. He can do a little bit of everything, but he's not there on everything. You can't even call him a jack of trade.
Right.
You can't.
Yeah, and it sucks too, bro, because like he's such a likable guy. He really is. Like when you listen to the kid talk in his interviews, like he doesn't really care about himself. He truly does care about this team. He's everything you want your halfback to be. It's just you're so damn talented, you never shown that talent. And that's the most depressing part about it all, man, because this kid could have been something great, honestly.
So do we feel that and yeah, when you talk about the injury aspect and how consistent it has been for Miles at the running back position, it only elevates because they have the shortest shelf life out of any position on the football team. And if you're looking at a guy that's only going to play, anywhere from 10 to 12 out of 16 to 17 games a year, there's no dependability there, especially if he's trying to work his way back from an injury and he's not 100%. And throughout this past season, he seemed to have his his capabilities seemed to have deteriorated to where we weren't seeing him as much of a threat in the passing game, much as the run game, like we did when he was a rookie, when he was utilized in both the run and the pass on the field, and it just wasn't there in the same way. So, but with that said, and collecting the positives and negatives as a whole, because there is still positives to his game, despite the inconsistency. Do you guys feel that based on the position we are now, in terms of the depth and not knowing about Jordan Howard and Boston Scott's future, and you already know that Jason Huntley is more of an asset on special teams, that leaves you with Miles and Kenny Gainwell. So do you end up putting Kenny in that number one role? Because, for one, he's not ready for that at all. So if you don't trust Miles enough, you're going to have to put a bit of an emphasis on free agency to try and blend him with somebody else. Or do you let him play out his contract year and live to fight another day going into next year, while you're grooming another draft pick behind Gainwell, or what would the best case scenario be, in that regard for the three of you?
Yeah, no, man. Like I said, if there's any way possible, dude, I'm going out for Lenny. You bring Lenny in, that hopefully lights a fire under Sanders' ass, and gets him moving, because now he knows officially his job's on the line. When you make a move like that, you're automatically telling Miles, hey, you either go or you go. You know what I mean? And two, they would be a great combination. I mean, thinking about Leonard Fournette behind this offensive line just gives me goosebumps, honestly. He would have a – go ahead.
Uncensored. You and Vic are Penn State fans.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you guys this. Think back to when Miles was at Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
Would you guys say, coming out of college, would you guys say that he had good vision as a running back?
Yeah, he did. Miles was the starter at first before Saquon came. Saquon took his spot.
Good vision, though? Because that's
Yeah.
the thing I think that he really struggles with in the NFL. He doesn't see the holes like other guys see them. Or at least he doesn't hit them with that authority that he needs to. Because you've seen the difference when Jordan Howard came in, he was seeing those holes and he was hitting them. I mean, that we were going. I don't know. Miles, he lacks that I don't know what the word is, tenacity, or that he lacks that killer instinct. He just doesn't seem to have the top level vision, in my opinion.
Nah, man. I'm laughing because I was just about to say right before you brought that up. This is how you fixed Miles Sanders. If I'm the running backs coach, I am putting every single Le'Veon Bell tape from Pittsburgh in front of him, and I'm making him watch it. If you look how Miles Sanders runs, if you look at him, there's a lot of times he'll dance in the backfield and wait for something, and then he bursts through. Who is that? That's Le'Veon Bell. The thing is, his vision sucks, and he waits too long sometimes. He needs to get that whatever he's trying to pull off, he needs to get it down. Well, the best person to learn that from, his run style, is Le'Veon Bell. If you could get him to look at an offensive line like Le'Veon Bell did when he played in Pittsburgh, dude, Miles Sanders would have a tremendous career because they run the same exact way.
Well, for me, Miles looks different because of his first season at Penn State. And you got to understand, too, when you're coming out of high school and you're the best out of high school, you're automatically like the fastest. You know, one of the strongest.
Right.
But when he came into Penn State, he was a smaller guy, but his thing was straight line speed. Once Miles,
Bet.
like you said, that was his thing. Once Miles got that ball, he's hitting the hole. He's already in past the second level. But the thing
Yeah.
was, after he sat behind Saquon, I think he thought in his head was, what is he doing that I'm not? And he kind of emulates, like AK was saying, he dances in
Yeah.
the backfield. That's all Saquon. He emulates a lot of the things that Barkley does when you look at him. His game now, since he came out, you see it's a little different now, but when he came in that first season, just like Saquon, he tries to run like Saquon. He's kind of changed it up now, but he still does the same things in the backfield. He's
Yeah.
trying to come in and kind of like act like he's going for the hole or trying to like do it himself instead of just reading the offense, reading the defense. See what you're given. That's what Howard does. He sees what he's given. He understands what he needs to be, but he also sees what he's given. Miles doesn't do that. Miles is somewhat trying to fake out the linebacker before he gets there. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Deal with the linebacker once he comes up to you. You can't do it in the backfield because by then,
Well,
linebacker already has gain on you.
that
He's already in the backfield. You're still
that's
dancing.
why I was saying about watching Bell's tape because I don't mind him being patient. Being patient sometimes is a very good thing. Sometimes waiting for your blocks to set up and
Mm-hmm.
giving it a second, it pays off. But if you're gonna do it, you got to do it right. And when I say I compare him to Le'Veon Bell, it's not the fact that he off of his play style. You're right. He tries to be too much like Saquon when he's more like a Le'Veon Bell. He needs to change his game around to a Le'Veon Bell and stop trying to be some powerhouse that you're not. It's like,
Yeah.
bro, no lie. You're strong. You can break tackles, but you break it with your speed and the little leg power that you have. You're a shifty dude where Saquon can run you the fuck over. You know what I mean? So stop trying to run people over and just do what you do best. Don't overthink shit. That's why I said if he starts playing more like Le'Veon Bell, dude, you might get something out of the kid. But he's got to stop trying to be Saquon.
I mean, I think it
And
was
we've seen what I was
when
gonna say.
we
We've seen what Coach Singleton wants. We've heard it many times. You hit the hole, you run straight. You don't play around. You don't dance. That's the opposite of what Miles is doing. He's not doing what the coaching staff is. We've all heard it. We've all seen the tape. We've all known what he's been asking. Hit the hole, run. Don't dance. But that's what
Yeah, I
Miles
mean,
does.
Miles often has had a tendency to want to try and break it out to the edge to where he can meet the linebacker at the second level in a position that benefits him because he knows that he can outrun that to where he knows he can outrun that position, and then all he would have left is the safety if the safety is in the backfield. And and there was games where I did watch him, and he did have that he did have that Jordan Howardness to him where he's not afraid to hit the hole, especially if he's going north and south. That's one thing I do love about Miles. He's not afraid to go north and south or east and west. But it's the games where it's the games where he absorbs that feeling of breaking it outside and going for the home run, where it becomes an addiction that he wants to try and do it over and over again, where that's not necessarily your assignment at that point in time, judging by how well your offensive line creates the running lanes. So that's where you get the moments where you're thinking, well, okay, well, Miles, what are you doing here? You're being a little, you're dancing a little too much. You're a little too twitchy. You're a little too indecisive, and he gets in those moments where he's not following the blocks where he should when the holes were there, and and then that's what in turn can create some of the injuries because he ends up running into a brick wall and he's got nowhere to go, and he's getting manhandled for either a loss of short yardage or no gain or a positive game of like 1 or 2. So that's where some of the extra inconsistencies have come in with him, and that's why he's part of it is in the that's why that part puts him in the position that he is, to where he's got to play through his contract year. He's not gotten an extension yet, and it's tough as a running back because of we know the level of dime a dozen that they are, and them having the shortest shelf life. And Miles has shown at one point, he has shown so much promise that he can be this team's number one, and he just hasn't completely lived up to it yet, and it's a shame. So I mean,
You know what's crazy, man?
What's that?
You know what's crazy? We call him Movie Miles, and he's truly Movie Miled us.
Hey, but one thing I will say is, in free agency, don't be surprised if we make a run at Melvin Gordon. That's someone who Howie's had his eye on for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be as thrilled with that one. I mean, I'm not a huge Melvin Gordon fan, but I guess if it works out, I'd be okay with it. But I wouldn't be like, yeah.
I wouldn't be overly excited, but if you pair him up with Miles, I think that I would have more faith in this backfield.
I don't mind James Conner. If you toy with that one for the right price,
He plays like a fullback, though, doesn't he?
No, he's a halfback.
I know, but I'm saying, like, his thing is he just gets tough yards here and there, a couple of yards. He never really, except for like a couple of games to Arizona out of the blue, but he never really has like a breakout game where he's getting you over 100 yards, or he's even getting you 80 yards.
Hey, man, he's a good kid with a big heart, and he plays big. And you know what? I don't need him to be 1,000-yard halfback. I need him to be that heavy puncher inside the 20, and that's something I know James Conner can do. Is he can score touchdowns.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, if you want him for that, like that one extra yard, but for him to be the main guy.
No. I'm talking strictly as a rotational halfback with Miles.
Yeah, because we're
not much for a 1-2 yard back.
Well, yeah, we're still in the means of a committee atmosphere here, and if you think about it, for the people that are questioning on whether we should bring back Jordan Howard or not, James Conner seems to fit that mold pretty well of that punching up the gut, north and south grinder type of back that he would replace Howard pretty well. Like we tried to do in the competition between Jordan Howard and Kerryon Johnson, and that just that only blew up in our face because Kerryon couldn't stay healthy, and we took a risk on an injured player that has suffered a previous meniscus tear, and he just couldn't bounce back from it. So I mean, James Conner.
Don't get it twisted, dude. Conner can still rip off a 40-yarder if he needs to. I'm not going to deny the kid. He's got a lot of talent. So
I think he has a lot of heart. I love his story. I like his grit. Yeah. Again, like I don't see he's like you said, if he's that guy that's coming in that we need an extra yard day, I trust it. But for him to be in, because again, we got to think about it. Miles isn't here a lot of the games. If we're gonna need him to be our guy, I don't know if I could trust him. I don't know if I can rely on him.
Well, no. Miles would definitely still be your first, second, and sometimes third down back, obviously, if he's trusted enough to be. I believe that's why this year in the red zone a lot you saw Boston Scott and you saw Gainwell and Howard, because they were actually trusted more with the ball in the red zone than what Miles was. That's the only. I believe if Sanders proved that he was all the trustworthy that he can be, that he would have had all those touchdowns, but he didn't. So therefore, you got to look at it and be like, all right, well, if they truly think that way about Sanders, then Fournette or Conner, somebody in that nature, makes truly 100% sense.
I just feel like if we were to acquire Conner, he would be someone that would come here and we would consider his play underwhelming.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think you would also have to consider the intrigue that Kenny Gainwell has shown last year between the mix of being able to, not only run the football, but he has that dynamic where he looks like a pretty competent receiver at times, and like he was able to build upon back at Memphis, and of course, we know two other Memphis running backs that are in the same division, in Antonio Gibson and Tony Pollard, and we know what they bring to the table for their respective teams. So, I mean, sure, I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be opposed to that, but you're going to have to be in the mindset going forward that Miles is going to end up being expendable, and don't put it past this front office to if they make this kind of a decision, they're going to want to try and get some value out of Miles instead of just letting him walk and testing the free agent market. So if they know that he's not going to be the answer going forward, they're going to want to try and get value for him at the deadline. With that kind of transaction and free agency, somebody to push him to the level of, if you don't want to pay him, you want to get some value out of him in return, since he was a second round pick.
I think it all depends on what type of year he has, though, to be honest.
Because based on what you were talking about, like the expectation with Miles AK is that I heard, with this, like 1,500 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns, it almost seems that, for Miles to guarantee an extension for himself, it has to be Pro Bowl or bust. I think that's what it sounds to me, that's what that's the level Miles has to play at in order for him to get a reasonable extension on the football team. So yeah, I mean, well, I think that's yet to be seen on how the depth is going to look like at the running back position going forward. But it sounds, and I get that it sounds negative to a certain degree, but there is a positive in it, in knowing that we got something to build off of. With Kenny Gainwell, and Miles still has something to give us, but again, can he stay on the football field for more than 12 games to really maintain his establishment there? And I still think that's yet to be seen. But yeah, I mean, running back and tight end position on the offense, to me, are the two most intriguing conversations to have when it comes to how this roster is going to be built in this offseason going forward. So, with that said, we have already hit over the 2-hour mark, and I want to give another quick thanks to everybody that has come through, to view the presentation of this episode of Touchdown Talk, being a touchdown takeover, courtesy of the East Meets West podcast with Eagles Uncensored, Vic 3, and Philly Foothills. And yeah, while we have been, we've been keeping it together, but the best we have been able to hopping in and out, and unexpected occurrences happening and whatnot. But we're still here. We're still here. We're still alive. We're still talking Eagles football as we are meant to do for our channels. And thank you guys once again for making this possible, and make it possible at the same time, viewers, if you would, during the live show or the playback, make sure that you give these guys as much support that I'm being given right now for just clicking on my channel and watching this show. They deserve as much of a subscription as I do. We understand the level of dedication that goes into this, and as it may be a career for some based on their success, this is a hobby at the end of the day, but we're still trying to grow it at the same time. And we appreciate any kind of support that we have been given up to this point. And, well, as I say in the shows, Bird Brothers and Sisters, it holds true, because that's what makes the community what it is, and how we're able to do these kinds of collaborations. Because if everybody is a what to each other, then there's not going to be this kind of dynamic. You're not going to be able to build anything, because no one's going to like you. They're not going to do work with you. But that's what makes part of the Eagles content creator community how it is us building the brand, so to speak, under the top dogs on the totem pole, of course. And we know, I think we know who we're talking about in terms of that. But so we can close the show out, fellas, a little bit before I continue to ramble on here. We'll touch up the defense a little bit because special teams, there isn't much to talk about there. I think we're perfectly fine with guys like Rick Lovato and Aaron Sipos, even though Sipos towards the end of the year was pretty disappointing. And don't put it past this team to draft a punter this year, to really light a fire under Aaron and see if we can get him back to the level that that he was at the beginning of the year, having the iron leg that he did. Shout out to Jake Elliott for the amount of just sheer improvement that he had made this year after a embarrassing 2020 season. I think how many field goals or extra points in total did Jake?
I think he was 27. I think this year is 27 for 27.
Yeah, he was automatic in field goal.
I mean that's just such a awesome turnaround.
Yeah.
So I mean shout out to him. Yeah, he got paid and he's got that responsibility behind him. But no, this was the big four, so to speak, that we were talking about, especially in 2017 when he hit that 61-yarder against the Giants. Week 3 to put them away. This was the Jake Elliott that we missed, and we're happy to have him back because again he was a Pro Bowler. So shout out to Jake Elliott for that. But yeah, so like I said, special teams, not much to talk about there. Although we do have some great pieces that contribute from the defense, like Sean Bradley, Marcus Epps. Kayvon Wallace has been doing a good job. Josiah Scott has been doing a good job. But of course they're also involved in the defensive rotation. When it comes to depth. But we got some free agents to try and sift through here. Derek Barnett is probably the easiest one that everybody's like, hell no, get him the F out of here. He stole $10 million last year. Nobody wants him back. So he's the easiest one. He's not going to be here. Jannard Avery is another interesting one. Tried to add to the mix of that edge rusher, Sam linebacker type of role. Never really lived up to the expectation that the Eagles had, a couple years ago in trading a 4th-round pick for him. I don't think he's really found his place in this roster up to this point, and it didn't make it any better when you have a first-year defensive coordinator trying to figure these guys out. So you did have players at times out of position, which they can't necessarily help it, but at the same time, you have what you have. The players are what they are. I don't know about that one. Steven Nelson, we know that one. We've already seen Slade trying to recruit him back to come back to Philly. I don't think anybody would be opposed to a return for Steven Nelson. He was very serviceable on the opposite side of Slay. Didn't hear his name called all that often. Whether it was penalties or giving up big plays. Yeah, they existed, but he did very little to hurt the football team in those situations. Unlike 2 other people that played at that position, we're not going to mention their names because I thought it was blasphemous at one point that saying Ronald Darby and Jalen Mills were better than Steven Nelson, and I just can't get on that bandwagon. I'm sorry, but you got him. Hassan Ridgeway, another one. We got to figure out what we're doing with him. He adds to the defensive tackle depth. He was always just a minor rotational piece, so not sure how much of a loss we would get if he's not on the team anymore. Ryan Kerrigan, sorry, bud, time to retire. I mean, for him to have, what, 2 sacks the whole year, and 2 of those, it was either 2 or 3 sacks he had the entire year. 2 of those, I think, came in the playoff game, and the other was, I forget the team that we played. Wasn't it Detroit when we were giving them a beat down, and Kerrigan had a sack that game, I think.
He had 1.5
He had 1.5.
He had 1.5 sacks, and he got a half sack.
He only had a sack and a half.
Yeah, he had a sack and a half. He got a half sack in
goodness.
Detroit, and his 1 sack came from the playoff game.
Oh man, but no, I mean it's just a shame when you think about it, because I mean, a lot of us were excuse me, a lot of us were excited to bring in Kerrigan to add a little bit of depth, and we were still down on Derek Barnett, and we thought at one point, well, maybe Kerrigan's another one of those guys that can help some of the young ones out and maybe get a little bit more out of a guy like Derek Barnett, because he has had his moments, although few and far between, where he was able to display some of the talent that he has. And the problem is that there is talent in Barnett, but he just has a hard time of
He's a dipshit.
and jumping off your screen. It's never worked here. Maybe it would work in a different system, but for us, it was a complete miss. So yeah, I don't think anybody wants him back. So we'll break it down here, since I've been a little across the map instead of centralizing a single position. But without really going into deep detail, I think we know that we need to address the edge rusher position. That's not a question. DT, there's a lot going around at the defensive tackle spot on whether we should trade Fletcher Cox or not, and the question of if we have enough depth behind Fletch, if he ends up being a trade casualty. So I guess we can talk about that for a little bit, and finding out from you three if you guys would be on board to a Fletcher Cox trade, or are you more along the lines of trying to figure out a restructure and keeping him for, at least a year until you figure out what you're going to do at the defensive tackle spot?
Go ahead, Fuzz.
Go ahead, Fuzz.
I mean, definitely the money that's being put in to the starting defensive tackle spots has to be addressed, and that's going to be, and more than likely that's going to have to be from Fletch. He's going to have to restructure his deal, because he's not playing at a high enough level to garner the amount of money that he's making per year. He's just not. He's getting older, and I mean, I wouldn't be completely opposed to trading Big Fletch, but it would have to be a deal that benefits our team. Definitely, we'd have to get some good compensation back, and I don't know if there's a whole lot of teams out there that are really, that interested in his services, being of his age, and he's had some injury issues, and he's also had a lot of question marks about putting out full effort all the time. So those are things that have to be addressed, definitely. But I'm probably more on the side of keeping Fletch and hope and let's work on a restructure. Let's get a more team friendly deal going.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's been a weird conversation to this point, because it always seems that the only player that Fletch is really compared and contrast to, especially when it comes to the hate that Fletch gets in the fan base, is Aaron Donald. Like the expectation for Fletch is Aaron Donald or nothing. And then there's the complaints about, well, why can't Fletch do what Aaron Donald's able to do? Well, to a degree, defensive tackles need some sort of help, and to this point, Fletch hasn't necessarily had a consistent supporting cast around him when we're talking about the defensive tackle position. Only the last 2 years, for what it's worth, because we didn't have a full season out of Javon Hargrave the first year he was here. It was only until this year that we did, and he ended up being a Pro Bowl reserve because he had a pretty fantastic season as a DT. But if we seen what the Rams did to help out, well, not to help Aaron Donald, but to free him up a little more because he's constantly double teamed and maybe even triple teamed. If that even makes sense. Well, the way that Fletch has been for the last few years. Well, what did the Rams do? They grabbed Von Miller, and they already had a guy in Leonard Floyd in the ranks that was just as able to provide a force of a threat the way Von Miller was able to do when they acquired him. So I mean, there's a fair side to it, but there isn't a fair side to it. And I think the biggest problem that stems from the matter is the fact that Fletch makes as much money as he does. And I think that's where most of the problem lies, is that, people feel year after year that Fletcher does not live up to the contract that he was given. And, I think that's the bigger problem with him, more so than the lack of contribution. Just to me, just to my point of view, only because it's just I don't know how fair of a comparison it is to put Aaron Donald and Fletch in the same conversation. So that's where I'm at with it.
It's not fair. Oh yeah, go ahead, Vic or AK.
Yeah, Fletch is just not the player Aaron Donald is. So
He's
to
not.
continue to put him in that conversation is just no. It's to me, it's more of the contractual issue than it is the talent issue.
He definitely not. But what I'm looking at here is Fletch is only going to make 2.12 million. The cap hits 14 now. But it looks like the way this contract's set up, unless it's not restructured, there's no way we can move on from it. We're going to have to keep him at least for 2 more seasons, because after that, his cap hit comes down considerably. Comes down to 7 million. So, 6 million. So if we stay tight for 2 seasons, then I could see, them trying to do something. But right now, unless someone's trying to, clear up that dead money, I don't see there's a way we can move on from it. That's all dependent on what happens with Fletch this offseason. If they can somehow formulate a plan, take out a lot of that dead money, then we can move him. But the way it looks right now, he's here to stay.
Yeah, I think yeah. And I think the other part of it is the fact that, come the start of the new season, he's going to be 32. So again, we're going to be in another conversation where, well, is the front office going to have the kind of attachment again that they did post Super Bowl with some of the players, and that conversation again is going to arise, but just we're going to be in another slippery slope at that point in time. But yeah, I mean, it just depends on, I guess it just depends on the level of a regression, if it gets to that point with Fletch, to where the performance and the money attached to his contract don't add up together.
Yeah, but the thing is, even with Fletch and his contract, the way it's all set up, Our best move is to stay firm with the draft and get younger guys in there to replenish them. Because like I said, we're gonna have to keep them around maybe after this season. Next season, if they can figure something out, maybe we can move on from them. That remains to be seen. But we have to keep on moving forward, and that's getting young guys in here through the draft, talented guys who we can build up, and once that time comes, we can replace them.
Yeah, I think the other thing to it is that there's when you look across this defensive line, aside from some of the edge rushers, there's really nobody
I agree.
notable that there's really nobody notable that is a good run stuffer. We have blamed we have for a lot of times we have blamed the second level in terms of the linebackers. We have blamed them to not being able to stop the run, but that's just as much of a responsibility on the defensive line to close up those holes as it is for the linebackers to crash and stop any more positive yardage for the opposing team's offense. And really, Fletch hasn't, especially as of recently, Fletch hasn't necessarily been built to do that. He's been more of a sniff out the quarterback and apply pressure in that type of manner more so than that primary focus on stopping the run. I mean, that part of it has been inconsistent as well. And then, and once that happens, teams are able to build a rhythm when they realize that they can run the football. When they can run the football, we're just going to get the ball out quick. We're just going to get the ball out quick out of our quarterback's hands. We're going to tire the defensive line out, and then we're not going to give the offense much chance to try and catch up to the points that we're putting on the board. So, yeah, but no, Joey makes a good point here in saying that they can draft Jordan Davis, who he feels that he's a really good candidate for the top defensive tackle spot in the draft, or that we can bring in another nice rotational piece to add to the position. And you can take note as to what Tampa Bay did when they combined that duo of Ndamukong Suh and Vita Vea and what that was able to do for them. Well, do we have a duo to that level for Philly if you want to put Fletch and Hargrave in that conversation? Uh, not really. But it also hurts that we don't have depth behind those two. Like we most notably did in the Super Bowl year, to where you can just continue to throw pieces in the mix, and whether it was Timmy Jernigan, and you had a younger Fletch, you had a younger BG, you had Bo Allen on that squad. We're really not in that position anymore the way we used to be, and especially with these players continuing to get older. You got BG coming off of an Achilles tear, who's going to be, I think, 33, 34 years old. Fletch is getting up there at 32, so it's tough when you think about it, because something's telling you in the back of your mind that this team is more so in a position to start turning the next page and opening the door to unleash a little more youth at that position. And you're trying to ask yourself, how strapped are we in terms of depth on the defensive line? And I think that adds to the question on whether you should keep Fletch or not.
Well, and I've been saying it for the longest time, man. At 15, I'm going with an edge. I'm going with Johnson.
Yeah.
I'm going with Karlaftis. I'm going with, Ajabo if he's there. Any of these top tier pass rushers. And then at 16, I'm going Jordan Davis. And I always will stand by that, because if you have Sweat when Brandon Graham comes back. You put Jordan Davis where Cox would go, with Hargraves in the middle as well, and then you have Sweat with either one of those three prospects I named on the edge. That's two great talents coming from that side. And then you sit there and dude, no lie, Jordan Davis and Hargraves automatically make it the best tandem inside defensive line
Hmm.
Hey, let
around
me
there.
ask you all a
Three
question.
at least.
And add Milton Williams into that
And
mix.
add Wilson. Well, yeah,
I
into
mean,
that
he's
is deadly.
come on. He wasn't, and that's the funniest part about it is that he wasn't. He was one of the least popular picks next to
Yeah.
Landon Dickerson with his injury concerns and this and of course that meme was out there, the fact that Tom Donahoe was so pissed off with Howie that they chose Milton Williams over somebody
Yeah.
else that they wanted. And I forget the player that they wanted instead of Milton at that point in time, but when we're talking about the DT position, that draft class, let us remember that there was a lot of us that also wanted Christian Barmore, and
Yeah.
I forget where he ended up going to, but he was a
New England.
Patriots.
New
He was
yeah.
England.
So
Patriots.
that was
I
another
think
great prospect that we could have had on this squad, and now we're in a position where we're continuing to ask ourselves, like, how much more time can we borrow with some of the veterans that we got left, knowing that they're not going to have much left at some point in time.
I think that player you were mentioning that Donahoe was upset with was the safety out of Indiana, Lamar Johnson. I
No,
think that
no, it was another DT.
was it? I thought it was Lamar
it
Johnson
was
who they had mentioned.
it,
But
it
let me ask
was
you another question. Would you be opposed, and if you're sticking with the first three picks, of just going out and getting two defensive ends with those out of those first three? Even going back to backside. If you got
I wouldn't-
Karlaftis,
yeah.
you got the kid out of Georgia out there, you can bolster right there your edge, and you have the third pick to pick up a lineman.
Well, I
I mean,
wouldn't be opposed to it because
I
I
wouldn't
know how he works in terms of how and how he approaches the draft every year. He said it doesn't. I mean he's said it multiple times in multiple press conferences that we have known, that we have watched. He's not afraid to continue to add depth to the trenches, because that's the philosophy that he has built upon as the GM here. So, if they're understanding what we're understanding when we're looking at this roster right now and realizing the lack of edge rushers that we have and where the defensive tackle position is going, yeah, I would not be surprised if they double dipped, especially if more than one DT or defensive end was in the category of best player available. Yeah, I would not be surprised if that happened.
we know how much Howie loves defensive tackles, so
Oh yeah.
if he takes one first round, I wouldn't be shocked at all, because he's. I mean, it's time to kind of take. For me, I would rather see us take. We need pass rusher. We need a defensive end before we need a defensive tackle, in my opinion.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Two defensive ends.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that at all, Vic, because we got to be able to get after the quarterback, especially with the front four, because we know we've seen Gannon's system. It requires the front four to get consistent pressure, and if we can get two young guys that can get after the quarterback, then I say let's do it, because
I know, but that's exactly what Jordan Davis brings you, though, to Foothills. I mean, I understand he's not on the edge, but you know what? I mean, we still have Jackson. We don't know what he's going to be yet, but hopefully he makes that next step up. I mean, we have still some young candidates on defensive end. If you get one end in the first and then you go with Jordan Davis, Jordan Davis is your future at DT. Literally.
My scenario had Jordan Davis' ball, by the way.
But you can
use that DT. We just pick up.
You can get ends in the second. You can get some quality ends in the second. There's names out there that will be climbing the boards.
Yeah, I like Major Sanders out of Cincinnati. I think he's a good player. But that's what I mean.
I'm all for taking two edge rushers, but I don't believe we have to do it back to back. Is all I'm saying.
Well, no, not necessarily back to back. Like I said, you can go out, get Davis first and get an edge rusher. Wait until 19 and get your second edge rusher.
Okay, Sure.
Yeah, like I said, that was my whole thing. First, Davis is key because that's the
Yeah, I'm
defensive
saying
tackle
if
I want.
Davis is there at 15 and 16 when you got those two picks, dude, you have to take him. A talent like that does not come around all the time. It's pretty much a my lotto on the defensive side of the ball.
And you make sure that Milton Williams stays at DT as well. And that's, you know what I'm saying?
That's your three
That's behind
rotation.
Cox.
That's your three
That's behind
rotation.
Cox.
Yes.
Yep.
And you let Jordan Davis learn under Fletcher Cox this last year, because we can't get out of his contract. You let him coach up Jordan Davis, teach him the ropes, and then you unleash this kid next year.
Yep.
What do you guys think of the kid from Penn State, Ebiketie?
Oh, he's nice, dude. I won't lie. He's pretty
I don't want to
decent.
sound like a homer, but I think we have an impressive draft class this season.
Yes.
Again, I don't want to sound like a homer, but again, when you look at it, our defensive linemen, great. The linebackers are coming through great. Our safety, come on, man. Our cornerbacks, defense for Penn State, in this year's draft, like they're coming in, they're impressive. Hopefully, we can get a couple of those. We can pluck some Penn State guys.
Yeah, dude, listen, what's going on, Pablo? Appreciate you showing up, bro. No lie, though, man. I would love to take a linebacker in the first, but record shows we don't do that, man, and I'm not getting my hopes up, so I'm going in thinking that we don't take one. If we do, mine's going to be blown. I might cry a little bit, and be happy. But I truly don't think that we're going to do it in the first round. I mean, listen, we won the Super Bowl with a mediocre linebacker crew. We didn't necessarily have superstar talent at linebacker to win the Super Bowl. How he doesn't evaluate that talent to be important anymore. So the odds of us doing it's very slim in my eyes.
Speaking of how I hope he doesn't. I hope he doesn't reach too far off of the board, like he did with Rieger, man. I mean, I hate beating a dead horse, but could you imagine, guys, if we had Justin Jefferson right now? I mean, we'd be set at wide receiver. We would be fucking set at wide receiver. Rieger was. I just pray that he doesn't do some dumb s like the Rieger pick, because that was just blatantly stupid.
Hey, like I told you, man, supposedly JJ and him are being shopped right now. So pray to God something happens.
I don't know who's shopping for JJ, first of all. Who wants a decent blocker? And then you have Rager.
Man, you'd be surprised who has a pretty big ego out there in the NFL who might look at JJ and be like, I can fix that guy.
Hey, if someone wants to do it and wants to give us a decent draft pick for less than, I'll accept it.
You might get like a 6 or 7 for him, but that's it. But I'll take it. Don't think I won't.
You get that. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm surprised you would get that. So I'm all for it.
I'll take a Philly cheesesteak for Rieger right now.
But yeah, I mean, shout out to Pablo Gary though.
Pablo.
And I seen a recent video from Pablo and how he has rebranded the channel to call it the Birds and Bros podcast, and shout out to him and all the future success that comes his way with that, because he's on. I mean, not to say that the path wasn't good before, but I'm saying in terms of improving the channel. I mean, because he's doing a really good job over there. So, but yeah, I mean, you bring up Nakobe Dean and Devin Lloyd, and that's the worst part when I think about it, is when you bring up the linebacker position and when you bring up the safety position. For this franchise, one of the two least valued positions on the football team are in the worst shape right now. So, I mean, you got the worst double negative working for you, and it just seems at this point there's really no light at the end of the tunnel, because we know flat out that this team is not going to invest a first round pick in a linebacker or a safety, especially when they need the talent there right now. I mean, you look at the safety position, and there's just Andre Sachier, Marcus Epps, Kayvon Wallace, and then
Don't count on that. Don't
then,
count on that.
but still, my point is,
How much
outside
do you
of
count on Epps?
outside of Anthony Harris and Rodney McLeod, I'm not discounting Marcus Epps because I know of the improvement that he has made, and he has looked pretty good up to this point. But my point is, do you like any of them as a starter right now, especially when Anthony Harris and Rodney McLeod are set to be free agents? No, that just makes it look even worse. That just makes it look even worse than we're imagining at this point in time. And we're not even touching on the linebacker position.
Well, okay, let me put it this way, bro. If we're talking about this in the aspect that Howie doesn't do something stupid and he sticks with Jalen Hurts, I expect us to put our money all towards Williams, especially if he becomes available. That gives you your veteran
Marcus Williams, yeah.
Yeah, that gives you your veteran safety, and then maybe, just maybe, you might be able to pull a Brisker, a Smoke Monday, or a Kine. Maybe in the draft you could possibly do that. But I remember sitting there last year with you, bro. How many times were we screaming at this fucking monitor to draft Jabril Cox? Remember that shit? And it never fucking happened. And that was in the second round. The odds of us taking a linebacker is very fucking slim to none.
And where did he get taken? The fourth?
He went to Dallas.
Hey, we did take a linebacker in the first round, but remember that?
Yeah, that was a long fucking time ago.
A little linebacker / defensive end out of the University of Louisville.
Hmm.
We should have taken Clinton Dix that year. I remember that.
Oh, Clayton Dix. Yeah. Well, sadly for him, he is
with Marcus Smith.
So
that was the last time we took a linebacker in the first round with Marcus Smith.
Yeah, Marcus Smith.
Yeah. I still to this day, I just don't see it. I just don't see it happening. But Pablo also brings up the thought of, would we trade up for Derek Stingley Jr.?
Well,
only one person for me, bro, and that's like 8 or 9, and that's only if Hamilton's there. And that's only if you don't have to give up too much either. If we can sneak up and grab him for giving up just a tiny little bit, I'm okay with that. But I'm not giving up the fun for the kid.
Hasn't Stingley? Doesn't he have injury issues the last couple of years? Stingley?
I know he didn't play last season because of COVID.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I knew that. I knew he didn't play because of that. But I don't know if it was specifically related to injury. I know he stepped out because of COVID.
I know bring up his last best year was 2019, is from what I've heard.
Yeah. That was that.
Well,
that was COVID season.
I mean, granted, they're different positions and different values, but that was the same story for Kenny Gainwell. I mean, he didn't play. He didn't play in 2020. His last season was 2019, and we still took a chance on him in the 5th, and we got a pretty good product up to this point. So, when you're talking about a first round talent missing a year, and he's still projected to go top 10, that only tells you the that only tells you the level of player that Derek is. But when AK brought up Kyle Hamilton, I just thought of the idea that how much would Jonathan Gannon benefit from another Malcolm Jenkins-esque type of safety in this defense, one that's a bit of a do-it-all type of safety, on how much Malcolm Jenkins was utilized in Schwartz's defensive scheme, what that would do to elevate the proficiency of this defense. Like,
you like a Sauce Gardner?
That's the problem.
You're underestimating.
Like Sauce Gardner hasn't led a touchdown his whole entire career. That's someone that can log it down, and that's someone that can possibly be available also.
By the way, you are underestimating that by far. I'm saying this kid's Cam Chancellor-esque. You know, he's 6'4", 220 pounds. He's a big human being. He's very fast and he hits very hard. Like he is Cam Chancellor esque.
Yeah, we never had a
I mean, just the amount of intimidation that would put,
Yeah.
that would put in the secondary to realize that, okay, well, we're not going to get away with as much as we thought with this team because we have to, that's the problem with this Eagles defense. There's outside of Slay, who else are you really scheming against that
Maddox.
poses a threat to the opposing offense?
I mean,
Maddox.
it was
Nobody
it was-
really.
it was.
Well, yeah, you have to take account for
Eddie
Maddox.
Hargrave. They used to be Cox, but now maybe Hargrave. I mean, other than Slay.
Yeah, that's true because Hargrave was seeing some double teams, at points throughout the season, and even when Fletch was dealing with, when he was dealing with a single lineman, he was having a hard time in pressures. But according, but to Pablo's opinion, he says Kyle is okay, but being 6'4" and skinny, he won't last long. Tackling will be an issue for him. Cam was rocked up.
So Pablo, I love you, dog. Much respect to you, man. You don't think he can bulk up? I mean, hopefully he can condition and build muscle. I mean, you look at some of the players that make a dramatic change. I mean, hell, look at when Carson Wentz from year 1 to 2. What a dramatic change he went through,
Had he not seen the tape of the hits? Has he not seen him hit?
I don't know.
Bulking up. If you bulk that kid up, you know how many people you're gonna hurt out there?
Well, we're
He's
asking
Anderson's there with a purpose. Huh?
We're asking Devontae Smith to do the same thing, just because the concerns are very familiar, very similar in that regard, and that's why we have such an emphasis on wanting to get a free agent veteran receiver. But
God, just imagine, bro, if you could grab. Just imagine if you could go and grab Williams and then somehow, some way, Hamilton falls to 8, 9, or 10, and you're lucky enough to make a trade and get Hamilton. So now you have Hamilton and Williams. Jesus Christ, dude, that would be good luck.
and of course we're dreaming again because we're trying to add a bit of sense to the conversation. We know that that's not the direction that the Eagles are going to go because they don't value the safety and they don't value the linebacker. So, I mean, either way, we're screwed. We're just we're just coming.
Would that secondary, bro? Would that secondary not be to die for? Williams and Hamilton. Wow.
Yeah, I mean the versatility that it would provide. It'll accelerate the development of some of these players. I mean you can only imagine the benefit that would give to guys like Marcus Epps and Kayvon Wallace and Zach McPherson, Tate Gowan, Kerry Vincent Jr., and anybody that offers some sort of competition when it elevates. If we bring in some players like that, and it sounds sensible, but that's the worst part. We know that it's not going to happen. We're just going to see some offensive or defensive linemen there. They're going to do their part and draft a late round safety. They're going to try and get another linebacker. They're going to hope for Davion Taylor to return and come back from his injury and pick up where he left off. And that's just the way that it's going to go. I mean, but I just don't know how you continue to put yourself in the definition of insanity and doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. We have known for how many years consecutively now that when they continue to abuse when they continue to abuse not addressing specific positions and it backfires on them because the defense doesn't get any better, well, it's just a shame that we're at the point of saying this crap till we're blue in the face. It doesn't happen, and then we're sitting in our chairs here at the end of the day, looking at this team and be like, "Well, see, I told you so. I told you so. We need help at X, Y, and Z." And again, another off season, we're complaining about the same thing. So. Yeah, I just hate that we're setting ourselves up for disappointment because they just
It's like
don't
beating
want.
a dead horse, man, isn't it?
Yeah, they just don't want to go. They just don't want to go in the direction that makes the most sense for improving this football team. I mean, and I say it in a way that I hope Sirianni helps. I hope Sirianni helps turn them into that kind of direction and be like, okay, well, you guys are looking for some improvement, and yeah, I understand that my defensive coordinator was underwhelming, but in order to help him succeed, you need to address the specifics of X, Y, and Z, and and build and have some and give him something to build off of. Because if we're being honest with ourselves, Gannon didn't have much to build off of with the defense as a whole. You're only singling out a couple. At the most, you're singling out what, 4 to 5 players, and most of those players are established veterans who have been proven Pro Bowlers. That's it. Everything else underwhelming. There's nothing to build upon. So we can only hope that that kind of change is going to happen.
I agree, man.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, speaking of talking until we're blue in the face, I don't necessarily think that we need to address the cornerback spot other than the idea of thinking, does Slay need or deserve another extension for
Hell
Philly?
yes.
And because I've heard mixed opinions on this, and be like, oh well, don't get stuck in the position that you were with hanging on to guys, and you rather trade them a year early versus a year too late, and you don't want to be stuck in that position again where the player is going to have no value. I have heard that with Slay. I have not agreed with it personally, just because of the depth, just because of the issues with the depth at corner that we got going on right now. And and this isn't to say that if and when Slay gets another extension, he's not going to necessarily end up being paid like a top 5 corner, although he does deserve it. But that's the position that we were in last year. He was considered the top paid corner in the league only because his extension only spanned for 2 years. So they took it in a totality of money. That's not to say that we would be in the same position again, considering those circumstances. So I gotta wonder that, if you do extend Slay, where does that leave you in terms of cap going forward, and what do you hope to accomplish for the future of the corner position when there's not much to work with behind him outside of Avante Maddox, and this is considering if a guy like Steven Nelson's not here anymore? That's another question you have to ask yourself.
Hell
I
yes.
think that's one of the reasons why we have Joseph here, why we got Gowan, why we picked up McPherson. It looks like we're trying to fill that in with younger talent. Now, I don't know if they're good enough to replace Slay, but I think that was the mindset to do how to do it.
Yeah, and to Pablo's point, I don't necessarily think it's a lack of player development. I think it's more along the lines of like like multiple transactions that are going to um, that are going to allow you to borrow time. Like, how often have we seen Howie go to the bottom, like the bottom of the barrel, like the lower tier pickups, just to buy him time in order to go for somebody better, hopefully down the road, like we were able to in picking up Slay. How often has he done? How often has he done that? So now we look at the depth chart here and we say, well, okay, well, Kerry Vincent and Tay Gowan are projects. Josiah Scott has been limited to special teams. Zach McPherson is another project. And then you go to the safety spot. Kayvon Wallace is still in development. He has been underwhelming up to this point. You hope that he has a better year 3. Marcus Epps, you're hoping that he continues to improve going into year 3. So I think it's more. I think it's more so filling those roster spots with players that have lower ceilings, that you're not going to get much out of them, even regardless of the level of development.
Well, and in all honesty, man, the way that I look at it is Darius Slay.
Yeah, I get that too, Pablo, because there is a couple of outliers in that, like Razul Douglas and for a little bit Sidney Jones too. But I didn't have I didn't have much of a problem with Denard Wilson this year. I thought Denard did pretty good with the secondary with what he had to work with. But a lot of our secondary room, they were later acquisitions. Like we didn't have them. We didn't have them for a long period of time in house, other than Zach McPherson, and that doesn't include the safety spots. So I mean, we got something to build on, but like I said, we're bringing in guys with lower ceilings and trying to get some development out of that. You're not moving the goalpost much.
Well, Linda, you mentioned one guy right there, Rasul Douglas. What about him?
Yeah.
He's not going to be commanding much. He's familiar with the team. How he knows him. That's
Well, I think Green Bay would. I think Green Bay would end up holding on to him, but then again, wasn't Razul a 4th-round pick out of West Virginia that did have promise? I mean, when you compare him to Tay Gowan and Kerry Vincent, I think those two were late round, like close to 6th and 7th rounders. So I mean, that's what I'm talking about in terms of the talent level that you're bringing in. They're going to reach their lower tiered ceiling faster than Razul is going to. But yeah, you still understand the means of development. And yeah, that has been a problem with us for the last few years now. But I think as of right now, we're on a better track than we were.
Well, and I mean, you got to look that Darius Slay has had his best season this past year with us. You know what I mean? And when you have a player that did that, right now I'm looking at he's our kind of Revis Island. He's playing at a pretty damn good level right now. Let's sign him to a 3-year deal. That way, at least if he plays next year good, and the year after you start seeing him fall off at the end of the year, you can get rid of him without taking too much of a cap hit. Do it negotiable so he's happy, but we can also get out of it at a friendly deal. But listen, I don't think Slay's going to fall off as quick as everyone thinks he will. But yeah, I think he is a very big key component to this defense moving forward, and you have to sign him, dude. You just have to. He's all we got.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's enticing options in free agency, which I don't think there's very many, unless you make more of a emphasis on it in the draft. I mean, it's not like we're stuck with. It's not like we're in a means that we're stuck with Slay, because to me that doesn't make sense with how well how well he has played, especially spanning back to 2020 and the mess that he had to work with, and to go from 2020 to 2021, what he was able to do, and then he turns into a Pro Bowler this year. Being stuck with him is a good thing, but
Yeah.
don't get it twisted to where you put yourself in a situation that you have to overpay for his services. You gotta have some sort of balance there. But,
Well, that's what I said. It's got to work both ways. It's enough to make him happy, but it's also enough that if he starts slipping and his play drops, it's easy for us to get out of it, and it doesn't hurt us as much. You got to make both sides happy, but I feel you can find that a reasonable place with that. I'm sure he wants to be here. He likes it here. He loves playing for us. So
he knows the fan base loves him too.
yeah,
We're
Oh
definitely
man.
not stuck
It's
because
gonna
when
be
you look
very
at it, we're
interesting.
actually stuck without talent behind him. We're the ones that are stuck because we don't have anyone else around him. We don't have anyone else that can take, his place. That's
Not
the
only
position that we're stuck in.
Right. Not only that, but like Uncensored said earlier, with McLeod more than likely moving on, we got a lot of question marks at safety, and that kind of goes hand in hand with Slay's game, because he's got to have that. He's got to know that he's got guys back there that he can trust. If he doesn't, then you may see his play slip off because the back end's just not as good as it was before.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if Philly completely hits the reset button at safety just yet. I think in terms of value, Rodney is more valuable than Anthony Harris is, and if you're looking for somebody, not including free agency, but if we just so happen to acquire a great talent at safety in the draft, that is a little bit further along than Marcus Epps and Kayvon Wallace. I think that's where the value of Rodney McLeod is going to come into play, to where he has been such a good model for not only the football team but for the city of Philadelphia. He won. I forget the award that he won this year, but he's always a candidate for it, for the amount of stuff that he does for the community, and not only that, but what he means value wise for the football team. I wouldn't put it past the Eagles to bring him back for at least one more year until they figure out what the ultimate direction is for the safety position, because that would be the easiest transition for them, to have somebody there that's been there and done that, especially when we moved on from Malcolm Jenkins. Rodney took over that role the best he possibly could. So I don't know if we're exactly in a position to do a complete reset there and lose starter potential at a safety spot. So I mean, I would feel okay either way if we don't see Anthony Harris or Rodney here, but I'd feel a little better if we did give Rodney one more year in this defense until we knew where we were going in terms of the position overall.
I think that the award that you
ahead.
were talking about, Lindy, is the Alan Page Community Award. That's the
Yes.
award that Rodney McLeod won.
And I understand where you're coming from, Lindy, but in all honesty, dude, I love McLeod as well. But with all his injuries lately and everything like that, and his availability not being there, until the end of this past year, listen, McLeod is not a JG guy. He's not.
Let me throw this out there real quick, because this guy played safety in college. And
Rodney played better than Anthony Harris did, even though he's not a JG guy. So what's the difference? And Rodney, and you got to give Rodney credit to how well he was able to bounce back from a second ACL tear. So I mean,
and take nothing away from him. I'm just saying that Harris was brought here for a reason, and he's probably the cheaper way to go as well. So maybe and in all honesty, Harris didn't do that bad.
He didn't do bad, but he didn't play better than Rodney. And Anthony was supposed to be a JG guy, whereas he's supposed to bring Rodney along, but Rodney played his position better than Anthony did. And just because Anthony would be cheaper doesn't necessarily mean that he would be the better option or the better player going forward. So that's why I'd be more comfortable with Rodney until you figure out the overall depth of the safety position, especially if a guy like Marcus Williams or anybody else in free agency isn't available. There's nothing wrong with having Rodney as a backup option.
No, there's not.
Or if we don't get Rodney back and we're looking to try some other guys out at the position, maybe Jacoby Stevens gets a little play at safety. He played in college. I know. But
he's not further along than Marcus or Kayvon, though. That's the problem.
True, but they could battle it out in camp. Maybe he can get there.
Just don't be surprised if Rodney is a free agent.
I know you have a good thought on this.
Even though Harris didn't play as well as Rodney, or vice versa, they both played the same. I think because of Harris, his availability, the fact that it was a new team. It was the first time he was out of Minnesota. So that might come into play. But also, like we all said, the fact that Rodney's injuries are going to come into play, that's a big factor. And the fact that he's a free agency, how much is he going to command? What is he asking for? Is it going to be something that's team friendly? I've always said it the whole time. Safety position was something to worry because, again, we're not in a position to give up on any of these safety, Harrison or McLeod. We're not in a position. No. But again, we are going to make a move. That is what it seems like it's going to be. We're going to make a move. What are they going to say? But I honestly think it would be Harris. I understand it might not make sense because, Rodney has been here. He's the captain of the team. He's played pretty decent. He has come back from that injury, but it's the fact that there's so many injuries that happen. That, I think, after a while, the team doesn't want to stay because what if there's a setback now? Or what if he does get injured in OTAs? You've already signed him or in training camp, and now you're stuck. You don't want to go through that again.
I mean, do you trust Anthony to ultimately take over that captain type of role that Rodney has had for the last few years?
No, you can't do that after one season.
Okay,
but I don't plan on
first off,
after that one season either.
I'm looking at a hindsight. If you grab like Williams or Jesse Bates in free agency, somebody of that caliber, I don't care to have a Harris next to them. That's not a bad option to have him next to a superstar free safety. So if you get Williams or Jesse Bates by somehow miracle, whatever chance, then yeah, Harris will do just fine next to them.
There's a lot that remains to be seen. We don't know.
Yeah.
That's why this is so hard to talk about, and I say it all the time. Until we sign free agents, dude, it's hard to say what this team's going to be. It could look completely different next year. Who knows?
Yeah.
Bates is on Cincinnati, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, see Bates, yes.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll be franchise tagged or signed, but as far as now, he's set to be a free agent.
I mean, he's only 24 years old. He's still very young.
Yeah.
I don't think Cincinnati's going to get rid of their best secondary player.
I don't think so either.
I don't think they're going to let him walk. I don't see it happening.
I don't know what their money situation, though, is either. So,
yeah.
We're a little less than a month away from free agency. It starts off on March 16th.
Yeah, because I do know that the tampering period is a lot closer than that as well. So
oh yeah, that's probably the tampering period started.
We get to see what we're looking at in free agency. Because again, what's going to be our main focus? Is it going to be a potential linebacker? The guy coming out of Green Bay. Could it be a safety? Could it be no one? Like last year. We were pretty quiet during free agency. We waited till what? Almost training camp, I think, until we got Wilson.
Oh, it's going to be far from quiet. I promise you that. Every time you turn your head, I think we're going to be doing something up until we can't anymore.
Yeah, I mean the last biggest rumor that we were a part of was, I think, a couple of years ago when we were in the running for Jalen Ramsey and he ended up going to the Rams.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the last one. But well, I think we did despite everything we managed to, despite the stuff we managed to go through in 3 hours and 15 minutes worth of time. Well, look at that, AK. This stream lasted longer than ours. Well, I guess that's a touchdown talk record, but respectfully so, because there's 4 of us on the panel, and you guys have the honor of being the first podcast on Touchdown Talk, and with all that being said, I think we did a damn good job this evening, and covering as much as we possibly can without getting into the rumors that really that without getting into the rumors that we really don't need to pay any mind, and like Jimmy Garoppolo or Kyler Murray, stuff like that. Like, no, stop it. But side note, shout out to BLSG. He came in here. He had to leave a chat for Foothills and Vic, saying that the Sixers got a nail-biter win today against Milwaukee going into the All-Star break. Talk about taking down the potential MVP in Giannis. I mean, Giannis again having another fantastic year. He's almost looking like that he can repeat not only as MVP but Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, that's just there's no lack of an emphasis when you call him Greek Freak. I mean, Giannis is ridiculous, and leave it to me to miss a Mavs game where Luka goes 49, 15, and 8 and destroys the Pelicans. Like, come on. Dang it, I missed
it. You should have known it. The Pelicans.
Luka had his 4th 45-plus point game this year, and he just tied a franchise record with Mark Aguirre in Mavericks history.
That's awesome.
Can I just ask, how is it the fact that you were able to get Nowitzki, a bigger guy,
to go from Dirk to Luka
at the time, forward, and then you get Luka? How is it that you're so lucky?
You can thank the Hawks for that.
Good grief. You're going to end up with like 2 of the greatest shooters that ever played.
Luka almost had a triple-double. He went for 49, 15, and 8. Two more assists, he would have had a triple-dub.
Dude was 7 of 14 from 3.
Wow.
I mean, come on.
He dropped 49
in
38 minutes.
All I do is just put my hands up because I mean, I try not to be surprised, but he never fails. He never fails to not amaze me in his game and what he means to that franchise. And I get it. Spencer Dinwiddie and Bertans did not have much of a good game again, but of course, if for the rational group, you're not going to gel into a system in 2 games. I mean, come on, stop it. I mean, Sixers fans are probably going to be the same way for James Harden, even though Harden is still technically a superstar in this league. It's gonna take him a portion of time to get used to playing with Embiid and the rest of that roster. That's what Spencer and Bertans are going through right now. I mean, thank God we got Luka to give people the business. But still, man, it's unreal. It's unreal.
I'm sorry.
All I know is that AK's Bulls are gonna have a tough time in the East.
Listen, I gotta say this though. I think Luka is on pace. Seriously, Luka is on pace to have a better career than LeBron James when you look at it in total. The kid's been playing a professional career since he was a teenager. LeBron was out there playing high school. He looked all great against 5'7" kids. Come on, Luka's been a pro since he was 14, 15.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
If he
Luka.
continues on this path, I'm going to say he has a better career than LeBron James because I see him winning a championship. How many, I don't know, but the kid's going to get a chip.
Well,
Shout out to AK's Bulls though. DeMar DeRozan, that guy
Yeah,
is
They're going off.
amazing.
Yeah.
He just broke Chamberlain's record
Yeah.
of seven
Yeah.
straight games with what was it, over 50% shooting and
Over
so many
50.
points.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So mad that the
Yeah.
Sixers didn't try harder to get him. So mad.
DeMar DeRozan
Well,
he's real deal. That guy is
That's a boom.
good.
Vic, that makes two of us. I can only imagine the tandem of Luka and DeRozan right now.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, could you? Could you? Too bad. Too
The
bad.
Sixers just took out the champs without Harden, so let's go, baby. Let's go.
We needed a comeback game because those last two were horrible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Boston one. That one was just one of those games where it just snowballed. You know,
Yeah, but they beat the bricks off of us. Come on.
the Celtics set a record too. That first time in NBA history that a team hit more 3-pointers, 25, than the Sixers had total buckets in 23. That's the first time ever since the 3-point line's been put in the damn NBA. So that was kind of a, you know, it's just a bad night for the Sixers. You know, it just snowballed. We got back on track tonight. We're gonna be good.
Well, since you're here, Foothills, and I know that you're still a Kings fan.
Barely.
What the hell? What the hell was that trade?
You give away your future. You give away your future.
Yeah, that one broke. That was the, what do they say, the straw that broke the camel's back. I have put the Kings in the back burner for now. I
jumped the bandwagon.
I told someone, I had made a promise to someone that if they traded THB, Tyrese Halliburton, that I was gonna be a Sixers fan and until further notice. So yeah, I have put the crown away for now, just so to speak.
What did they get for Halliburton? What was it that they got?
They got
Sabonis and
they got a passing big man. Sabonis is like, he's a big man that can pass the ball. He's pretty, you know, he's a pretty
That's
good.
Arvidas' kid, ain't it?
Right. Yes, it is. Yep.
Good grief.
Sabonis is still good, but the problem is that it didn't move the needle for the Kings, if at all, because you get rid of a good player for a good player, and then you still have the rest of your problems. I mean,
and on top of that,
nothing happened there.
And on top of that, I believe Sabonis is only on contract for the next 2 years. So in a couple years, he can say bye-bye, see you later, you know, and then we're back to square one.
He's
Is
even
Roddy
older.
still running the Kings?
What's that?
Is Roddy still running the Kings?
No.
Oh,
Our current GM is the Kings' current GM is Monty McNair.
most hated man in Sacramento. That's who he is.
It's kind of been split with the fan base. It's kind of been split. Some people like it, some people don't. I'm one of those ones that don't. I absolutely. I don't know. I would have. Yeah, I just don't. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And yeah, I mean, another boneheaded move by the Sacramento Kings.
I do have to imagine, though, AK's still on cloud nine because of the terrible takes to which when the Bulls initially signed DeMar DeRozan, people are like, well, he didn't deserve all that money, and he's not gonna do much for Chicago. He's gonna be on the back half of his career, and yada yada. Look what he did for the Spurs, blah blah blah. And, well, no, the only problem that Chicago's got now is Vucevic, because he's just been I don't know what the hell happened to him, but you guys were supposed to have a big three and then mix in Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball, and now with Levine battling injury, it's you got to credit DeRozan for taking charge of that team and putting them on his back. I mean, of all, it seems like of all people to do it, it ended up being DeRozan who just got there. So,
yeah, I don't know what sparked it up, man, but thankfully it happened. Listen, I said it at the beginning of the year. I expected us to be a very, very potent offense. If we were going to win, it's because we outscored you. Like our weakest part was probably going to be our defense. And that's really what we've done, dude. We have came out and we've put up the points. This team is hot. They're hot, and I love it. I really do, man. They look good, and hopefully I win my bet and get to keep my team. But until
This is a marathon, sir. It's not a 100-meter race. You're
I
hot
thought
now, but after a while you get cold.
I thought if I remember correctly, when we did that stream, AK, I thought you had Chicago as a 3 seed in the East. You were that confident.
yeah, and that's what I said. Yeah, and we're sitting what, second?
Yeah, you guys are number 2. You're tied.
Yeah.
Same record as the Heat. You guys are both 38 and 21.
Yeah.
Yeah, technically.
No, I was close.
Second.
I was one off.
Cavs third, right? Cavs third, and we're fourth.
No, the 76ers are now in. I'm showing them in third.
Word.
Uh-oh.
Yep. Same record as the Cavs, 35 and 23.
Yeah.
Here we come.
Well,
I
at
was
least
the fat lady.
well, if I remember correctly, and I don't know if I have time to go back in the schedule here that I may get a last laugh at the end of the show. But if I remember correctly, I think my boy Luca was able to give AK's Bulls the business. But no, actually, no, I'm not gonna. Nope, hold on. No, they didn't.
He's gonna have a huge poster with just Luca. Just
You were wrong. Sorry.
No, never mind. We split. The first meeting we lost in Chicago, but the second meeting we won by 14. So yeah. So we're split right now. So I can say that Luca did give you all the business.
Well, I mean, if 14 points is the business, I guess.
It is. That's considered a blowout in the NBA. So
No.
There's not many teams that Luka doesn't give the business to.
hey, listen, we got the All-Star game going on this weekend. I won't be surprised if DeMar DeRozan comes away with that MVP.
That's interesting.
Who's got DeMar? LeBron or KD?
PIP
Yeah, I don't know.
for the insider in the house.
I don't know who picked him up.
Look at them coming in here. For the Sixers, man. Tell you what. Well, I mean, I'm happy too. Both the Sixers and Mavs won. Granted we beat the Pelicans, but it's not like the Pelicans are one of the worst teams in the NBA right now. So I mean, it is what it is. But okay. Excuse me. I think we rambled on for like 15, 20 minutes here. I don't want to keep you guys much longer. I already know.
DeRozan is on Team LeBron. Just to let you guys know.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, much like Luka is, because LeBron knows every time. I mean, last couple of years, who picked Luka? It was LeBron. So I mean, I don't know. But yeah, no, that's true.
And the Pelicans are stuck with a 300-pound center called Zion Williams.
I do gotta give the Pelicans this though. CJ McCollum had a good game against us. Unfortunately, he had a 38 piece on us, and when we're supposed to have a good defense, but you know the Mavs do have a good defense though. But yeah, I don't know how they could give up 38 to McCollum when they didn't really do that when he was a Trailblazer. So I don't know. That's not the here nor there. He still took the L, but yeah. Oh my God, right?
Big CJ McCollum fan, man. He played in my backyard. I got respect for him.
I would love this. You know what? That's true though, because Luka is the future. Luka is the future. So I mean, yeah, but all right. I keep saying it. I don't want to keep you guys for much longer. We've already been doing this for about 3.5 hours. We rambled on, I think, for the last 25 minutes or so. It's like 11:35 on the East Coast. I know that doesn't bother Foothills much over on the West Coast, being East meets West podcast. That's the way it goes for y'all. But
Yep.
of course, I will give one final thank you to the three of you in bringing your podcast platform on here for a first with Touchdown Talk, with this being a touchdown takeover, for the series, and having my first podcast on the show. Grant, thank you guys for the opportunity to make this happen and accepting the invitation. But with that, I will leave the three of you, with the final word. Do what you must in shouting out your podcast, your channel, and anything else of relevance that the people need to know. And we'll finally close this one out.
Go ahead, Uncensored.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? I am AK Eagles from the Eagles Uncensored podcast. I may fuss and cuss, but you can count on me and my content like the fucking city bus. And if you like the Wagyu, subscribe too. And also, just so you know, we got some merch getting ready to drop here soon. So, DM me if you want, and we'll get you guys hooked up. But we got East Meets West t-shirt. This is the very first one, so definitely, if anyone's interested, hit us up. We'll get you hooked up. Appreciate you guys. Much love. Peace out. Thanks for having us on, man.
Hey, man, I never thought I'd be happy to see my face on another man's chest. Pause, all included. But, man, y'all know who it is. It's Victory. You see me on the chat. You see me on Twitter. You will always find me with my fellows. Always supporting great Eagles content creators like my guy in the end zone. You'll always catch us on the East Meets West podcast every Wednesday. Catch me this Saturday, 6 p.m. on the Big Ticket with Jerry Lee. Our special guest will be Gio from the 215, and we also got Coach Dante. We'll be discussing this offseason and possible moves that could happen. But, Lindy, thank you for bringing us on. I really appreciate it. Please, everyone who's watching, thank you for coming through. If you can, hit that like. Subscribe if you haven't, and spread a comment. Put something down there. It helps out the algorithm for my guy.
Blurp, blurp.
Absolutely, yeah. First and foremost, thank you, Lindy, for having us on. Appreciate it. And thank you to everybody that's watching and listening. We really appreciate the continuing support and love for our content. And you come check me out, the Nest Out West. I'm always holding it down for Eagles Nation, 24/7, 365 out here in California. So yeah, check me out. Check us out, like Vic said, East Meets West every Wednesday, and Sunday mornings tentatively. It's going to be right around there. Sunday, Monday, right around there. Check out my podcast with Tone to Shields II, Birds of a Feather, the podcast. So check that out as well. We are working on getting an official logo done for the podcast, so keep an eye out for that. And you can always DM me at Philly Foothills on Twitter. I'm on Facebook, Instagram at Philly Foothills as well. So you can always hit me up on there if you ever need to contact me. And until next time, stay mean, stay green. Thanks for viewing us on your screen. But most importantly, like I always say, keep it fuego.
I was waiting for the music to come through.
Oh, Hunter killing me right now at the end of the show. He don't talk about Bay. Nah, come on. Even I wouldn't exaggerate, man. Nah, they ain't winning 10. You gotta build a. Oh my God. Yeah, probably. Yeah. No, that'd be game over. Luka and Embiid would be the best duo in basketball. I'm not even joking on that. No cap at all. Nobody would want to mess with those two. I mean, we got that Porzingis experiment failed, but oh, good Lord. what Luka would do with a big like Embiid, that's just disgusting. A man that's available that can actually make his free throws and no. I'm not gonna go down there. I'm not gonna go down there. Something that's completely impossible. But yeah.
It's not. I anticipate Philadelphia going after Luka maybe in 3 seasons. We might give you Harden for him.
The last thing I want to think about is Luka leaving Dallas. Let's be real about that.
The question is, would you follow, Lindy? Would you follow?
Would I follow him?
Yeah.
I will follow him. Wherever he may go.
I don't know. I don't know. It depends where he goes. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, I was privileged. I was privileged in having Dirk be as loyal as he's been for 2 decades in sticking with the Mavs, even longer than he was supposed to, because he has already said to a point that he should have retired 2 years sooner, because now his body's in worse shape and he can't play as well as he used to with his kids and that. So it makes me sad to think about it, being selfish and wanting him to continue to play. But, but no, I mean, I feel Luka's here to stay he's here to stay for a long time. I mean, there's too much.
Yeah, Luka's not going anywhere.
No, there's too much love for him in the franchise and the city of Dallas. It's just to destroy something like that. I don't see it happening. But no. But yeah, well, again, I'm getting caught up in another conversation. Everybody, Nesta or the East Meets West has already given their outros, and I will finish it with mine. And of course, again, a big thank you to the East Meets West podcast and making this episode of Touchdown Talk possible, the longest on the channel up to this point. And really, that only opens the door for other podcast platforms in the future to make an appearance. So I'm excited. I'm excited for that to happen. But with that said, for Lindy End Zone here, Flagels Fly, Bleed Green, Go Mavs MFFLs, got the dub tonight. World Series champs, Atlanta Braves. Phillies, sorry, it ain't going to happen again.
Never.
Take care of yourselves, everyone. Have a good night. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you next time.